Wait a second. The ad break is starting before I... Uh-oh. I always get distracted, or not distracted, I get confused because the OBS... Am I? No, I'm not anymore. I was for a second. Right? Yeah, right, right. Gibbons, you're confusing me. You're confusing me because you have the mute icon on your name. Am I muted or are you muted? We can't hear you. I don't know! It says... Please, somebody. Please. Please. Wait, I can look. Just kidding. I can see with my own eyeballs. Own eyeballs. Yeah, I can be heard. Gibbons, you are muted, I think. You're tricking me! You're tricking me! I can't believe this. I can't believe I've been bamboozled. Absolutely baffling. Absolutely baffling. Shake my head. Okay, guys, well... Today is gonna be a little bit of a shorter stream because... I don't know, actually. I might be able to make it. Hi, Cordy! Hello. Because I have to leave... I'll give myself 15 minutes, I think. So I have to make sure that I'm gone by 5:45, at least. I mean, like, at maximum. At maximum, I have to be done by 5:45. That's when the stream has to end. So I have to make sure that I read at a pace in which I end a chapter before that time. I guess I can't really plan that out. We're definitely not going to finish the book this time, which is sad because we were kind of on a roll of doing like a book every 3 weeks. So this book is going to be 4 weeks, I guess. What day is Christmas on, by the way? What day is Christmas on? Okay, it's not on a Wednesday. That's good. You did! Gibbons bamboozled me. Can't believe it. I can't believe I've been bamboozled. So that's all what's gonna be happening today. We're just gonna be reading. Hopefully we'll get pretty far so that the next time I read there isn't much to read. And maybe we could do something else also on that day. Okay, so I'm really wanting to play this game, 2 games, okay? But I'm not sure which game to pick. There's one game called Nova Lands, and I found it today, and it looks really fun. And then there's Moonstone Island. They're both kind of like farming sim type things, but then also you have buddies, and then also there's fighting involved. So I'm trying to decide which one I want to be streaming. I know that Moonstone Island will be like really good because I've seen people play it before, and also you can like collect little buddies. But Nova Lands has really good reviews as well, and you can make robot buddies, and it's maybe less of a farm sim and more of like automation. Like you set up things to have bots do it for you. It's really cute. Hi, Mocha! Warrior Wednesday. Thank you for the croissant. No, November is over. Yeah, it's been over for 6 days. Pride, are you okay? Have you been in the past? Or have you just have you teleported time traveled to the future to tell me that? If it's automation, it's a 50-50 chance it's going to be a pain to automate. But it looks really cute. Consider that. It's pixel. It's called Nova Lands. So if you want to look it up, you like the little cat doing a jig every time you donate something? Thank you with the cheetah! Yeah, it's called Nova Lands. Nova Lands. That's what I've been eyeballing. Also, look, Snicklefritz! Snicklefritz is finally a clown. Excellent. Excellent. You just finished reading. Wow. Wow. Guys, did you know that Dunn used to not say row, and then I said row so many times that now he says row? It's pretty cool. Whoa, pride. Can't believe this. But yeah, it looks good. It looks good, and then that one also looks good. I did steal that one from No. Yeah, but it's like a cute one, you know? Dunn, you're a flamingo. You're a flamingo. Dunn, if I could kin assign you a villager, who would I kin assign you? I assume I've also picked up some of his speaking habits. Probably. Did you know he says whatever? 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 That's what he says. Thanks! Yeah, this is my Warrior Cat Wednesday because, you know, it's like chill and hanging out. Whatever. He types it and he says it. Wait, what was I about to Google? Oh, villagers. Minecraft. Not Minecraft. Animal Crossing villagers. I'm kin assigning him a villager. Have you played? You found me on a Wednesday? I was reading Warrior Cats. I always get really impressed when people find me on Warrior Cat Wednesdays and then they stay. I think it's really a compliment. Because I don't think Warrior Cat Wednesdays are my most popular streams, but they make me the most happy. So I really enjoy them. Then do you play Animal Crossing / do you have a favorite Animal Crossing character? I have a very vivid image of which one you are, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. So I have to go look through it. You know what? You would be a Filbert. Mitzi! Filbert, Hopkins. Where the heck is Mitski? Mitski. Oh, kitty cat. A meow meow. Where's that dog? There's this one dog. Where the heck is it? He used to be on my island. What? Where is he? Maybe I have to go through all the dogs. New? Whoa. Dog. Shit. Where is he? He's not here. Does he not exist? Am I misremembering? Maybe I'm thinking about Filbert. I mean, not Filbert. Hopkins. Maybe I'm Hopkins. Rover's a cat. I don't think Rover is blue, is he? I don't know when I got here, but I know when I did, it was a menace. You, Cordy, you came with a bunny raid once. Remember one, and that's Derwin. Oh, me. I'm a cat. Yeah, I'm a cat. But my Animal Crossing villager is, in my chat, is Scoot, because he's my favorite. Yeah, I think you're a Hopkins. Hopkins. Can someone check what day I followed? I don't know what day. Oh, wait, can I? Can I press on you? Following since July 12th, 2023. Wow. I also can see your birthday. July. Oh my god. That's Cordy's birthday. Oh, wait, no, that's Cordy's account birthday. What are the chances? What are the chances that Gibbons was following since July 12th and then Cordy made his account on July 12th? Whoa. Whoa. That's crazy. Okay. Let's start reading. Let's start reading because we do have a time limit for today. So what happened previously? Previously on Warrior Cat's Twilight. I think there's been some more drama between Brambleclaw, Squirrelflight, and Ashfur. And because there's been tension between Squirrelflight and Brambleclaw, and they used to be like almost dating, you know. But then before that, Brambleclaw's been kind of like cozying it up in like getting real close to his brother, Hawkfrost in RiverClan, who is probably pretty evil, or at least he has a lot of ambition. Oh, stretching. Stretching. I don't want to break my back. Then I can't walk. Yeah, so there's been some tensions there. And Squirrelflight doesn't really like him anymore. He feels like a stranger to her. He's been kind of getting like too ambitious, and that's probably because Ash Frost has been like, "Oh, Brambleclaw, what do you mean? You deserve to be deputy. Firestar's a fool to not have you be deputy." And he's like, "You know what, Ash Frost, you're right. He is a fool." And then he's like a little bonkers. So because of that, Squirrelflight hasn't been hanging out with him. She's been hanging out with Ashfur, and Ashfur has clearly shown interest in her. And because she's getting closer to Ashfur, it's also making Brambleclaw pretty mad. So Brambleclaw's mad that she's hanging out with Ashfur, and Ashfur's mad because Brambleclaw's being mean to Squirrelflight, and there's this whole triangle going on there. Ashfur got a new apprentice. Birch Kit has now become Birchpaw, and Birchpaw is now Ashfur's apprentice. Very cute. We have somebody died. Who died? Oh, right. So there has been Leafpaw. On Leafpaw's side, Leafpaw got a message from Feathertail, who is a dead warrior from RiverClan. And Leafpaw got this message because Mothwing doesn't believe in StarClan. No, I will not break my back. So Mothwing is the medicine cat for RiverClan. And thank you for the Lurkville. Get some good working done. So Mothwing is the RiverClan medicine cat, but she doesn't believe in StarClan, so StarClan can't give her messages to be cautious about things. So Feathertail came to Leafpaw and said, "Hey Leafpaw, I need you to tell Mothwing this prophecy warning thing about something that's gonna be coming to her clan. It's a two-leg thing." And then Leafpaw was like, "Oh, dang, okay." And so she went and she told Mothwing, and Mothwing was trying really hard to, stay alert and cautious. But despite that, all of a sudden, somebody Mistyfoot, I think. Mistyfoot or somebody came rushing into ThunderClan camp and was like, we need help. Our cats are really sick. We don't know what's going on. We think they're all dying. Actually, wait. I feel like there should be 2 other people dead. Because as we came into the camp, somebody was dead. They were dragging somebody's body out. Okay, I'm changing that. So Leafpaw went over to... Oh, wait, sorry, she's not Leafpaw. She's Leafpool. Sorry, Leafpool. So as Leafpool was headed over to... Went over to... Oh, on her way to RiverClan camp, they ran into a WindClan patrol. And while they were on the WindClan patrol, they got kind of like interviewed, like, hey, what's up? What are you guys doing? And hi, John! And Crowfeather was there. And Crowfeather was like just staring at Leafpool. And one of his clanmates was like, bro, stop checking her out. You have so many girls in WindClan to pick from. Why do you have to stare at her and a medicine cat of all cats? And then he was like, no, I'm not, huff puff. And then when they said bye, he chased after them and was like, Leafpool, meet me at Twlight at the island. And then she was like, okay. And then they went to RiverClan and there was this sickness going on and everybody had tummy aches and it looked like they were dying. And a cat was being dragged out who was dead. And that's the one that I forgot. So I just added it now. So Leafpool helped out. A kit died while that was going on, and then we added another death to the list, and we found out that the reason why they were sick was because some 2 legs left, maybe like an oil canister or something on the territory, and some animals had walked through it, and also the kits had walked through it. They drank some. So that sucks. Then their mom got sick because the mom groomed the kits, etc., etc. They ate prey that had been infected with the oil, blah, 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 blah. So they blocked off the oil place and Leafpool went to bed and then where is it? Oh, yes. So Leafpool went to sleep, and then the chapter ends with her realizing that she forgot to go visit Crowfeather at Twlight. So she basically stood him up. But in her defense, there was a very big tragedy going on. She saved an entire clan, possibly. So that's where we are. Chapter 11. Okay, let's begin. Let us begin. Chapter 11. Squirrelflight stopped underneath the tree and listened. The woods were silent except for the wind rustling in the trees. When she tasted the air, the scents were faint. The cold weather must have sent all the prey deep into their holes. Shrugging, she padded on, letting her paws decide where to take her. She hadn't left camp intending to hunt. She had set out with Ashfur and Birchpaw on the way to the mossy clearing Brightheart had discovered. But when they emerged from the thorn tunnel, they met Brambleclaw on his way back from a training session with Spiderleg and Rainwhisker. Where are you going? He asked Squirrelflight, gesturing for the 2 younger warriors to go on without him. Ashfur's gonna teach Birchpaw some fighting moves, Squirrelflight meowed, ignoring the tabby warrior's aggressive tone. I thought I'd go along to help. Well, you thought wrong, Brambleclaw snapped. Ashfur is Birchpaw's mentor, not you. If you're looking for something to do, the elders need their pelt checked for ticks. Squirrelflight drew her lip back in the beginning of a snarl. Don't order me around. Then stop being so irresponsible, Brambleclaw retorted. There's still a lot to do. He flicked his tail angrily and vanished into the tunnel. We'd better go ourselves, Ashfur meowed. He glanced at Birchpaw, who had listened to the exchange with wide, scared eyes. There's no point in making trouble. It's Brambleclaw who's making all the trouble, Squirrelflight pointed out, although she had to admit that Ashfur might be right. Back in their old home, mentors and apprentices had usually trained alone. I'll see you later, but I'm not checking the elders for ticks, she added, as Ashfur and Birchpaw headed for the clearing. I'm not letting Brambleclaw think he can tell me what to do. As she bounded away from the camp, Brambleclaw's actions started to make more sense. He must be jealous of Ashfur because he had been chosen to mentor Birchpaw. And maybe because I'm spending time with Ashfur instead of him, she realized. But he made it perfectly clear how he felt about me, so he has no right to act like a bee-stung badger. She had decided to hunt for a while and take back a decent contribution to the fresh kill pile. She wouldn't give Brambleclaw the satisfaction of telling her off yet again for neglecting her warrior duties. Suddenly, she was flooded with the reek of ShadowClan. Her wanderings had taken her close to the border, not far from the dead tree. A heartbeat later, she heard a fierce snarling, followed by the screeching of a fighting cat. She froze. Had she crossed the border by mistake? In front of her, a few tail lengths away, on the ShadowClan side, a clump of bracken started waving madly, and two cats locked in a yowling knot of fur crashed into the open. One was Tawny Pelt, and the other was a huge black and white tomcat from the two-leg nest in ShadowClan's territory. Squirrelflight heard a shriek of pain from Tawny Pelt as the kitty pet fastened his teeth on her throat. She couldn't stand by and watch her friend and former clanmate get killed. She streaked across the border and flung herself on top of the tomcat. Let her go! She raked her claws down the side of his neck as he tried to writhe away. She bit down hard on his tail. He let a yowl of mingled pain and fury, and Tawny Pelt pulled free from him, whirling around to aim her claws at his ears. The kitty pet rolled over, battering at both she-cats with his powerful hind legs, then leapt to his paws and raced off into the trees. Squirrelflight scrambled up and watched him until he was out of sight. A moment later, Tawny Pelt joined her and stood panting hard. Thanks, she gasped. He jumped me when I wasn't expecting it. You're welcome. Any time. There was a haunted look in Tawny Pelt's eyes as her gaze darted wearily from side to side, as if she expected to find an enemy behind every tree. Squirrelflight was close enough to catch her fear scent coming from her friend. She couldn't understand it. Tawny Pelt was a brave warrior, and in her own territory. Is there something wrong? She asked. Alarm flared briefly in Tawny Pelt's eyes. Then she shook her head. Nothing we can't deal with. Yeah, and hedgehogs can fly, Squirrelflight retorted. Come on, Tawny Pelt. I can see something's upsetting you. It can't surely be that rangy brute. Leave it, will you, Squirrelflight? Tawny Pelt snarled. You shouldn't even be here. Consider yourself lucky a patrol hasn't caught you already. She spun around and bounded away, deeper into ShadowClan territory. Her pelt prickling with anxiety, Squirrelflight checked that no cats were in sight. Then she ran after her friend. Tawny Pelt, wait! Tawny Pelt skidded to a halt in the shadow of a pine tree. Squirrelflight, you mousebrain, she hissed. Get back! If a patrol catches you here, they'll claw your ears off, and I'll be in just as much trouble for letting you get this far. Squirrelflight ignored her. Scanning her closely, she saw how thin her friend looked, her ribs showing like branches and her pelt rough. She looked exhausted from more than just the recent fight. I'm not going back, Squirrelflight mewed stubbornly. Not until you tell me what's going on. Meow. Tawny Pelt sighed. You never give up, do you? She crept backwards into the shelter of the pine tree until its low-growing branches screened them from the passing patrols. Squirrelflight gave her a comforting lick around the ears. Come on, you can tell me. You know where that black and white tom comes from? Tawny Pelt began. The two-leg nest in our territory. There's another kitty pet, too. A tabby. Squirrelflight's tail curled up. Did you think I'd forgotten? They nearly clawed my fur off. And I wouldn't have gotten away if Brambleclaw hadn't helped me, she added to herself. Well, ShadowClan are having some trouble with them, Tawny Pelt explained reluctantly. Trouble with kitty pets? ShadowClan? Squirrelflight echoed. You're telling me a whole clan of warriors can't deal with a couple of kitty pets? It's not funny, Tawny Pelt snapped. Yesterday they caught Talonpaw out on his own. They attacked him and left him wounded. He managed to drag himself back to camp, but he died. Oh my god. That was fast. Jesus Christ. Oh, Tawnypelt, I'm sorry. Tawnypelt went on, her voice dull as if she was too exhausted to share Squirrelflight's horror. Rowanclaw, who was Talonpaw's mentor, led a patrol to take revenge, but as soon as the kitty pets saw them, they fled back into the nest. Their two legs threw hard things at the patrol, and Cinderheart's leg was badly injured. Tawnypelt curled her lip. Those kitty pets are cowards. They only come after cats who are weak or alone. Squirrelflight pressed her muzzle against Tawnypelt's side. ThunderClan will help, she promised. I'll go and tell Firestar right away. Tawnypelt stared at her. Don't be mouse-brained. This is ShadowClan's problem. So? We can't let you be picked off one by one without doing something. Tawnypelt lifted her head, grief giving way to defiance. Are you saying that my clan isn't strong enough to solve our own problems? Oh, you'll sort them out in the end. You'll sort them out in the end, Squirrelflight agreed. But how many more cats will die or be injured in the meantime? What's wrong with both clans putting their heads together and coming up with a plan to teach the mangy brutes a lesson once and for all? You're worse than stupid if you turn down help when it's offered. For a heartbeat, Tawnypelt's eyes blazed, and Squirrelflight only just stopped herself from flinching away as she remembered what a formidable fighter she was. Then the tortoiseshell warrior let her fur lie flat again. That's for Blackstar to decide, she meowed. Squirrelflight gave her ear a last reassuring lick. I'll come straight back, she promised. Not caring if any cat from either clan saw her, she raced for the border and back towards the ThunderClan camp. ThunderClan had to help. They hadn't come this far to watch another clan be driven out by a couple of kitty pets. When she came in sight of the barrier of thorns, she slowed down, getting her breath back so she could tell Firestar exactly what was going on. To her relief, her father was one of the first cats she saw when she pushed her way through the tunnel. He was crouched near the fresh kill pile, sharing a bowl with Sandstorm. Dustpelt and Ashfur sat close by, talking with their heads close together. A few tail lengths away, Brambleclaw was eating alone, devouring a wood pigeon with swift, hungry bites. Squirrelflight raced over. I've just seen Tawnypelt, she reported what the ShadowClan warrior had told her. They're being terrorized by those two bits of foxdun, she finished breathlessly. I told Tawnypelt we'd come and help. You'd no business telling her such thing, Dustpelt growled. Squirrelflight bristled, but Firestar gestured with his tail for her to keep silent. It's true, each clan should fend for themselves, he agreed. But that's part of the warrior code. But how far would we have gotten if we'd tried to follow the code when the two legs were tearing up the forest? Their monsters would have killed us all. Then you'll let us help? Squirrelflight asked eagerly. Don't forget I spotted that tabby brute on our territory first. We could have trouble with them ourselves if we don't do something to stop them. I'll go. Squirrelflight jumped when Brambleclaw spoke behind her. She hadn't noticed that he had come over to listen. Firestar twitched his ears at the tabby warrior. I haven't said yet that any cat is going. I'm not sure why we should, Dustpelt meowed. We're still recovering from the journey. One of our medicine cats is already away helping another clan. You can't take every cat's trouble on your shoulders, Firestar. No, but we can try, Sandstorm pointed out, giving him a long gaze from her pale green eyes. An apprentice was killed, Squirrelflight says. What if that had been Birchpaw? The question silenced Dustpelt. Then you'll send a patrol, Brambleclaw prompted. Tawnypelt's my sister. I'd fight StarClan for her, never mind a couple kitty pets. So would I, Squirrelflight added. We journeyed with Tawnypelt. We can't just ignore this. Brambleclaw's eyes narrowed as if he focused on something behind her, and she turned to see Ashfur coming over, looking troubled. He padded up to her and touched her muzzle with his nose. We have to help ShadowClan, she mewed, worried that he would disapprove. You do see that, don't you? I understand why you feel like this, he replied. You're loyal to your friends. I wouldn't want you to be anything else. Squirrelflight felt a purr rise in her throat. She pressed herself against Ashfur's shoulder, aware of Brambleclaw standing rigid on her other side. Very well, Firestar meowed. We'll send a patrol. Brambleclaw, you can lead it, but you're to speak to Blackstar before you do anything, and come straight back if he doesn't want you on his territory. Understood? Yes, Firestar. Squirrelflight, you better join him. You'll go anyway, so you might as well have permission. Squirrelflight's tail curled up. Thanks, Firestar! Pick a few more cats to go with you, Brambleclaw, the clan leader went on. Then you can leave at once. Brambleclaw nodded and ran across the clearing to the warrior's den, vanishing between the branches. I'll go too, Ashfur volunteered. No, I don't think so, Firestar meowed. And as the Grey Warrior looked crestfallen, he added, I heard you promised to take Birchpaw hunting. You don't want to disappoint him, do you? Ashfur sighed and murmured, Of course not, Firestar. Squirrelflight figured Brambleclaw wasn't likely to choose him to be a part of his patrol anyway. Her claws scraped the ground impatiently as she waited for the tabby warrior to come back. Suppose it's no good telling you to be careful, Ashfur meowed despondently. Squirrelflight touched his shoulder with the tip of her tail. Don't worry about me, she mewed. She remembered her first fight with the kitty pets. She should have known they would cause more trouble. The fur on her shoulders rose at the prospect of revenge. We'll be fine, she promised Ashfur. We're gonna make those kitty pets wish they'd never heard of the clans. Chapter 12. Brambleclaw reappeared from the den with Brakenfur, Thornclaw, Cloudtail, and Rainwhisker behind him. That's a big patrol. How do I say kitty cat word? Meow, meow, wow, 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 meow, wow, meow, wow. I think those are all valid cat words. Squirrelflight dashed across to join them. Good luck, Ashfur called. Squirrelflight waved her tail in farewell. Once through the thorn tunnel, she joined Brambleclaw at the head of the patrol. Tawny Pelt should be waiting where I left her, she mewed. She can take us to Blackstar. Brambleclaw nodded. Okay, you lead the way then. He kept pace with her as she trotted through the trees, not racing at top speed because they had a long way to go and had to be fit to fight when they got there. What's the plan? Thornclaw asked. There isn't one, Brambleclaw replied. We'll tell Blackstar that we've come to help and are willing to do whatever he wants. If he wants us to stay, we'll work out a plan with him and his warriors. Tawny Pelt was sitting close to the border, crouched under a brittle clump of bracken that hid her pale fur. She sprang to her paws, relief showing in her eyes when she saw her brother and the strong force of cats he had brought with him. See? Squirrelflight meowed. I told you Firestar would send help. Brambleclaw and Tawny Pelt touched noses. Take us to Blackstar, Brambleclaw meowed. Tawny Pelt turned and led the way swiftly through the undergrowth, deeper into ShadowClan territory. Soon the leafless trees gave way to dark pines, shutting out most of the light, and the ground under paw grew soft with the coverings of fallen needles. They splashed through a stream, the water running cold and shallow over a stony bed, and up a gentle slope on the other side. Gradually, the scent of ShadowClan grew stronger, and Squirrelflight realized they were approaching the camp. The ground sloped more steeply here, with rocks jutting out of the covering of fallen pine needles. At the top of the rise, the trees grew more thickly, guarding the edge of a wide, shallow dip almost filled with bushes. Squirrelflight recognized the place as the place she and her friends had discovered when they first explored the territory. Back then, no cat had expected that the kitty pets would be a problem, but now she wondered whether ShadowClan had made their camp too close to the two-leg nest. Although the scent of fear and injury wafting from the camp almost took her breath away, Squirrelflight couldn't spot any cats at first. But as they waited at the edge of the hollow, branches rustled beneath them, and Blackstar appeared. He climbed up in a couple of bounds, his fur bristling. What's going on? He demanded. ThunderClan cats in my territory? Tawny Pelt, what do you know about this? Tawny Pelt dipped her head to her clan leader. Squirrelflight helped me fight off one of the kitty pets. I told her about the trouble they're causing, and she brought a ThunderClan patrol to help us. A growl arose in Blackstar's throat. You told a warrior from another clan about our clan's problems? Tawny Pelt stared at him without flinching. I told Squirrelflight. She's a friend. And Tawny Pelt's my sister, Brambleclaw added, stepping forward to stand beside her. Blackstar gave a contemptuous sniff. Tawny Pelt's first loyalty is to her clan, or it should be. The tortoiseshell warrior began to bristle. Blackstar, I've never given you any reason to doubt my loyalty. The ShadowClan leader's gaze swept over the 6 ThunderClan cats. You expect me to believe that when you bring these warriors right into our camp? We'll turn right back around and go home if that's what you want, Thornclaw meowed. Just say the word. Don't be a fool, Blackstar. The voice was Cinderheart's. The great Tom heaved himself out of the cover of the bushes and scrambled up the slope to stand beside his leader. Squirrelflight saw that he was limping, and she remembered Tawny Pelt telling her that the two legs had injured him when he went to fight the kitty pets. We can't deal with this by ourselves,
Cinderheart is right.
Not Cinder, sorry, it's Cedar. Cedarheart.
Cedarheart is right.
Rowan Claw came to stand at his clanmate's shoulder.
Those kitty pets killed my apprentice. I'd welcome any cat who'd help me rip out their entrails.
Innards. Blackstar hesitated for a moment, looking from one of his warriors to the other, taking in their burning gazes and bristling fur. At last he bowed his head.
Very well. Cedarheart, fetch Russet Fur. We'll send a patrol with these ThunderClan warriors to the two-leg nest. But you're not going, he added, as Cedarheart retreated into the bushes. You're not battle fit.
Cedarheart shot him a furious look, but vanished without protest. Blackstar, I don't think we ought to kill these kitty pets, Brambleclaw meowed when he had gone.
What?
Rowan Claw spat before his clan leader could reply.
They killed my apprentice! I want revenge!
And if we kill the kitty pets, the two legs will want revenge. The two legs will want revenge, Brambleclaw pointed out. They must know you're here.
That's right, Cloudtail lashed his tail. Two legs have little clans of their own. He shuddered as he added, I was trapped in one once. If their kitty pets are hurt or killed, they won't rest until they've killed you or driven you out. You saw what they did to us in an old forest. Do you want that to happen here?
Then how do we stop their kitty pets from bothering us? Rowan Claw challenged. Just ask them nicely? He gave a disgusted snort. If we could trap them, we could make them promise to stay away, Squirrelflight suggested. Seeing all of us together should scare them out of their fur.
That's an idea, murmured Brambleclaw.
Squirrelflight glanced at him, startled and pleased by his support.
It's worth a try,
Blackstar decided, as his deputy Russet Fur slid out of the cover of the bushes and came to join her clanmates. Oakfur, a smaller shadow clan Tom, followed her.
Right, this is the plan, Blackstar meowed. Go to the two-leg nest, trap the kitty pets, and make them promise to leave us alone. Tell them we will kill them if they lay a claw on any of our cats again.
He caught Brambleclaw's gaze and added,
I mean that. I will do whatever it takes to protect my clan. But for now, don't hurt them any more than you have to. Is that clear, Rowan Claw?
The Ginger Tom dipped his head, muttering something inaudible.
Then go, Blackstar continued. Russet Fur, you will lead. I'll stay here and guard the camp.
They must be really scared of the kitty pets, Squirrelflight thought, if the clan leader has to stay behind to protect the camp. Then she saw Blackstar's gaze slide sideways to give Brambleclaw a suspicious look. She guessed he was afraid the ThunderClan cats were trying to trick him and meant to attack his camp while his senior warriors were safely out of the way. Typical Shadow Clan, she sniffed crossly. They think every cat is untrustworthy as they are.
May StarClan be with you,
Blackstar added, before he slipped back into the shelter of the bushes. The Shadow Clan deputy gathered the patrol together with a wave of her tail and led them around the edge of the hollow and down the slope on the other side. Brambleclaw nodded to his clanmates and waved his tail for them to follow. Russet Fur brought them to a halt a few fox lengths away from the two-leg nest, in the shelter of a bank covered with ferns. The nest was surrounded by a rough stone wall. Both the kitty pets were sitting on it, gazing out into the forest. Squirrelflight recognized the big black and white Tom with the torn ear who had been fighting with Tawny Pelt, and the smaller light brown tabby she had chased out of ThunderClan territory a few days before. There they are, she meowed. Russet Fur irritably flicked one ear. Quiet! Both cats looked full-fed and sleepy. After a moment, the big Tom started to wash himself, drawing his tongue lazily over his shoulder.
They don't know we're here, Rowan Claw hissed. Let's attack.
No, Russet Fur snapped. As soon as they see us, they'll run into their nests and fetch their two legs. We're no match for those creatures. Even I know that. We'll have to get them to come out here to us. Listen. It was Brambleclaw who spoke, pushing forward to stand beside Russet Fur. Suppose one of us goes over there. He nodded towards the space between the ferns where they were hiding and the wall of the nest, and pretends to be hurt or ill. If what you say about them is true, they won't miss a chance to attack an easy victim. Meanwhile, some of us should get between them and the wall, so they can't flee back to the nest. Good idea, Breakenfur meowed enthusiastically. Then we can jump on them and tell them exactly what we'll do if they cause any more trouble.
What do you think? Brambleclaw asked Russet Fur. The deputy's ears twitched. Great Star Clan, she muttered, a ThunderClan cat with brains. Squirrelflight bounced with impatience while she made up her mind. All right, we'll go with Brambleclaw's plan, she decided. We need a cat to go out there as bait.
I'll do it.
Squirrelflight and Tawnypelt spoke at the same time. Tawnypelt, meowed Russet Fur, waving her tail at Squirrelflight. She added, if they pick up a different scent, they might think it's a trick. True enough, Squirrelflight thought. Brambleclaw pushed his nose into his sister's fur. Don't worry, he meowed. We won't let them hurt you. Tawnypelt gave him a long look. I know. Squirrelflight watched as Tawnypelt limped out into the clearing and collapsed on her side as if she were too exhausted to go any further. Maybe the black and white Tom would think he'd hurt her badly when they had fought earlier, by the ThunderClan border. Russet Fur chose Rowanclaw, Oakfur, and Thornclaw and Cloudtail to creep in opposite directions and cut off the kitty pets from the nest as soon as they made a move. The rest of the cats stayed where they were. Keep as quiet as you can, even in the battle, Russet Fur ordered. We don't want the two legs to hear what's going on. Squirrelflight crouched in the break-in with her gaze fixed on the kitty pets. As soon as Tawnypelt appeared, they both sat up, ears pricked. The black and white Tom mewed something to his companion. Then both cats flowed down from the wall and stalked across the open ground towards Tawnypelt.
Hi, Nano! At once, Russet Fur signaled with her tail, and the warriors split into two groups and slid away, their bellies pressed close to the ground as they crept in a wide circle. Neither kitty pet noticed. Squirrelflight guessed that they weren't used to picking up unexpected scents, and besides, they were too intent on their prey. Tawnypelt lay on her side, her chest heaving with painful, panting breaths. As the kitty pets drew closer, she raised her head and gasped out, "Don't hurt me, please!" The big Tom thrust his muzzle into her face. "We won't hurt you, roadkill," he sneered. "We'll just take off a few pawfuls of your fur." "That'll teach you to come into our place," the tabby hissed, slashing a paw towards Tawnypelt's eyes. Tawnypelt flinched. Squirrelflight heard Brambleclaw gasp, and saw the huge warrior dig his claws into the ground as if he had forgotten that his sister wasn't as helpless as she looked. At the same moment, Russet Fur leapt out of the break-in. "Now!" Squirrelflight pelted across the open ground, Brambleclaw and the rest of the patrol keeping pace with her. The two kitty pets took one appalled look at the tide of cats rising to engulf them and turned tail and fled back towards their nest. But the other warriors were already in place behind them, advancing shoulder to shoulder. The small tabby kitty pet let out a terrified wail, but the big Tom leapt into battle, charging straight for Cloudtail and carrying the white warrior off his paws. Roanclaw leapt on top of them as they writhed on the ground in a whirl of teeth and claws. Tawnypelt scrambled up and sprang at the tabby. Rainwhisker and Russet Fur piled in to help her, so Squirrelflight launched herself at the big Tom as he tore himself away from his opponent's claws and tried to flee across the clearing. Hissing in fury, she raked one paw across his face. His blood splattered onto her fur, warm and sticky. She ducked as he swung his paw at her, slamming her head into his chest so that he staggered back and collided with Brambleclaw coming up behind. Squirrelflight scrambled on top of him, avoiding his battering hind paws. A heartbeat later, Brambleclaw had him pinned by the haunches, while Rowanclaw came up and sank his teeth into the thrashing black and white tail. "Don't mess with our warriors, you hear me?" Squirrelflight hissed into his ear. At that moment, she was speaking for all four clans, ready to kill if a hair was harmed on the pelt of any cat from any one of them. Glancing over her shoulder, she saw that Tawnypelt and Rainwhisker had pinned down the tabby cat. Russet Fur spoke to him in a low growl, then turned and stalked over to the big Tom. She looked down at him in silence for a moment, while he glared back with yellow eyes full of hatred. "You are a kitty pet, and you belong with your two legs," she snarled, her voice full of contempt. "The forest is ours now. Cause any more trouble for us, and you won't know what will happen to you." Squirrelflight jabbed her claws into the Tom's pelt. "Understand?" The black and white cat spat at her. "Understand?" Squirrelflight repeated. "Or would you rather I bit your throat open now?" "Understand," the cat growled. "Let him go," Russet Fur ordered, adding to the big Tom, "Go back to your two legs and stay there."
Reluctantly, a Squirrelflight and the other warriors released the kitty pet. He staggered to his paws, shaking drops of blood from his pelt. The tabby slunk over to his side and stood with his head lowered and tail drooping on the ground. Go! Russetfur bared her teeth. Now! Both kitty pets backed away a couple of paces, then turned and fled for the nest. They scrambled over the wall and vanished into the garden. Squirrelflight heard the door of the nest and a two-leg voice raised in alarm. Russetfur twitched her tail, and the combined patrol of ShadowClan and ThunderClan cats bounded back into the shadow of the pine trees, not stopping until they were within sight of the camp. I'll fetch Blackstar, Russetfur meowed, slipping over the edge of the hollow. Tawny Pelt padded over to Brambleclaw and pushed her nose into his fur. Thanks. You are great, all of you, she added, lifting her head. It was a pleasure, Brambleclaw purred. Any time. Wasn't that great? Squirrelflight meowed. I'll never forget the look on those kitty pets' faces when they saw us coming. And Brambleclaw, you were in just the right place when I attacked that big brute. You were terrific. The warmth welling up inside her turned to ice as Brambleclaw's gaze swept over her from... My nose is so itchy. The warmth welling up inside her turned to ice as Brambleclaw's gaze swept over her from ears to tail tip. You fought well, too, he replied stiffly, as though he were paying a compliment to another cat's apprentice. Squirrelflight sank her claws into the leaf mold and bit back an angry retort. She wasn't going to quarrel with her clanmate in front of ShadowClan cats, but his coldness hurt more than any wound she had received in the battle. The bushes rustled in the hollow, and Blackstar appeared. Russetfur tells me you made the kitty pets promise to leave us alone. You shouldn't have any more trouble, Brambleclaw meowed, but if you do, let us know. We'll be glad to help. Thank you. Blackstar's voice was cool, but I think we'll be able to manage for ourselves now. His words were a dismissal. Brambleclaw didn't try to change his mind. He gathered his cats together with a sweep of his tail and briefly touched noses with Tawny Pelt. Goodbye, he mewed to Blackstar. I expect we'll meet at the next gathering. He turned and headed back towards ThunderClan territory, following the scent trail they had left on their way. Padding behind him, Squirrelflight felt dull anger slow her paws. Her excitement was over. The brief feeling of closeness with Brambleclaw was over, too. Why couldn't they just be friends? This antagonism was such a waste when the two of them fought so well together. Her belly twisted with pain that Brambleclaw could put aside old rivalry for the sake of ShadowClan, but not for her. Fine. If that's the way he wants it, she muttered too low for any cat to hear. See if I care. But her shoulders ached and her drooping tail brushed the pine needles as she followed her clanmates back to the stone hollow. Chapter 15. We're making good pace, actually. I'll be glad when New Leaf comes, Mothwing remarked, turning over her store of juniper berries with one paw. We're very short on herbs. It's just as bad in ThunderClan, Leafpool told her, touching her shoulder sympathetically with the tip of her tail. This has been a long leaf fair, and we don't know the best places yet to find supplies. At least your cats are getting well now. Yes, thanks to you. Mothwing let out a purr, then turned to Willowkit, who was standing just outside the medicine cat's den, shifting from paw to paw. Give 2 juniper berries to each cat, except for Minnowkit and Pebblekit. They can have 1 each. Could you remember what juniper is for? The small gray kit paused with one paw raised, ready to snag a couple of berries on her claw. Bellyache, she began, eyes narrowed with effort of remembering. But they're getting better, and their bellies aren't aching anymore. She hesitated, puzzled. Then her eyes brightened. Strength, she mewed triumphantly. You're giving them juniper so they'll get strong again. Very good, Mothwing purred. She watched the young kit as she trotted away to give juniper to Dawnflower. She's been such a help. And so have you, Leafpool. My clanmates would have died without you. I don't think so, Leafpool meowed, embarrassed by her friend's praise. You know what to treat them with all along. Her 3rd night in RiverClan camp was drawing to an end. Dew glittered on every leaf and blade of grass in the slanting rays of the sun, and Leafpool was convinced it felt warmer than before. New Leaf couldn't be far off. No more River Clan cats had fallen ill. Mistyfoot had organized the fittest warriors to clean up any traces of the silver-green liquid they found in and around the camp, while Hawkfrost had finished the barrier around the two-leg thing and made sure every cat knew they had to avoid it. Meanwhile, all the remaining cats who had been poisoned by the sticky stuff were recovering. Heavy Step had already returned to the Elder's Den, while Minnowkid and Pebbлекit were feeling well enough to get into mischief. They were down by the stream now, dabbing a paw into the water as if they were pretending to fish. "Stay away from the edge," Mothwing called out. "I don't have time to rescue you if you fall in." The two kids glanced at each other and drew back a couple of paw steps, then started to chase each other in a circle. "We'll have to go back to the nursery," Mothwing sighed. "Dawnflower isn't really strong enough to look after them yet, but I'll get Mosspelt to help her. They'll only get into trouble if they stay here. I caught Minnowkit sniffing around my herb store yesterday." Leafpaw let out a meow of amusement. You'd think they'd have had enough bellyache without stuffing themselves with the wrong sort of herb. She stood up and gave herself a good long stretch. Along the back of the stream, the sick cats were stirring. Dawnflower had rolled onto her side to wash her belly fur, while Beachpaw was sitting up with his jaws parted in an enormous yawn. No cat looked uncomfortable or in pain. "It's time I was leaving," Leafpool meowed. "You don't need me anymore." Mothwing nodded, although there was a flash of regret in her eyes. "It's been great having another Medici cat to work with, but I know you have to go home to your clan." "You're leaving?" Willowkit bounced up to them to collect another dose of juniper berries. "We'll miss you, Leafpool." Hesitantly, she added to Mothwing, "Will you still need me to help?" "Of course I will," Mothwing reassured her. Willowkit's tail pointed straight up and her eyes shone. Leafpool padded along the bank to say goodbye to those cats who were awake. When she returned to Mothwing's den, she saw that Leopardstar had appeared. "Mothwing tells me you're leaving," the River Clan leader meowed. "The thanks of all River Clan goes with you, Leafpool." Leafpool bowed her head. Any medicine cat would have done the same. "We won't forget in a hurry," Leopardstar told her. "Have a safe journey, and give my thanks to Firestar, too." With a last goodbye to Mothwing, Leafpool followed the stream down to the lake, splashing through a shallow spot and heading along the shore, past the tree bridge. She hoped Crowfeather hadn't been too angry when she had broken her promise to meet him. She had forgotten about him on the first night in her desperate rush to help the sick cats, and on the next 2 nights she'd been too exhausted. Besides, she hadn't known if he would wait for her again, since she'd let him down the first time. When she reached Wind Clan territory, she kept one eye on the moorland, half hoping to see his lean, gray-black shape racing towards her, yet half dreading it too. Maybe it was better to end it this way, letting him think she wasn't interested. But the only Wind Clan cats she spotted were a patrol high up on the hillside. They were too far away for her to identify them, except to be sure none of them was Crowfeather. She felt as if she would recognize his sleek, dark shape from the other side of the lake. As she approached the stone hollow, the warm scent of ThunderClan's cat surrounded her. A purr rose in her throat as she pushed her way eagerly through the thorn tunnel, glad to be home. Firestar was talking to Cloudtail close to the nursery entrance. "I can't see Daisy ever becoming a warrior." "Oh my god, Daisy! I forgot about Daisy!" "Oh my god." Okay, side note. Something that happened in the last reading. They found a kitty pet in ThunderClan territory, Daisy, and she had 3 kits. She was from the farmland, and she escaped from the farmland with her kits because her friend had kits, and then the 2 legs had taken her kits away, and she didn't want that to happen, so she left with all her kits. And so ThunderClan, quote-unquote, adopted her, and the names of the cats gives you a good idea of their personality. Yeah, right? It definitely does. Because they're all kind of like described to what their color looks, right? Anyway, yeah, so the kits were there, and she's staying in the territory, in the ThunderClan camp now. She's taken a liking to Cloudtail. But obviously Cloudtail has a mate, Brightheart, and Brightheart is a little uncomfortable about it. I feel like she wants to insert herself with them, so it's more like a couple thing helping with Daisy, but Daisy's really scared of her face, so it's sad. Anyways, okay, resuming. Firestar was talking to Cloudtail close to the nursery entrance. I can't see Daisy ever becoming a warrior. Leafpool heard him meow as she approached. But sure, you can teach her some fighting moves. Oh, sorry, that was Firestar. But sure, you can teach her some fighting moves. She needs to be able to defend herself and her kits if she's going to live in the wild. Cloudtail's blue eyes gleamed. She'll be fine, he promised, before vanishing into the brambles to tell her. Firestar shook his head doubtfully, then straightened up as he spotted Leafpool. Welcome back, he purred, touching her ear with his nose. How are things in RiverClan? They were very bad when I first arrived. Two Legs left some sticky, poisonous stuff on their territory. Leafpool described what she had discovered and how she had helped Mouthwing care for the sick cats. But they're fine now, she finished. You've done well. I always knew you would be a brilliant medicine cat. Her father dipped his head and licked her ears. I'm very proud of you. Leafpool's pelt tingled with pleasure. I'd better go and find Cinderpelt, she mewed. She must have been rushed off her paws without me to help her. She bounded across the clearing and slipped behind the screen of brambles to Cinderpelt's den. Cinderpelt, She skidded to a halt at the mouth of the den. Rainwhisker was lying on the sandy floor with one paw held out, while Brightheart vigorously licked his pad. That's better, she meowed. I should be able to get it out now. There was a thorn sticking out of Rainwhisker's pad. Carefully, Brightheart gripped it in her teeth and pulled. It came away easily, followed by a spurt of bright blood. That looks fine, Brightheart murmured, nosing the thorn to make sure no scraps of it were left in the paw. Give your paw good luck, and you should be able to walk on it soon. Thanks, Brightheart, Rainwhisker meowed. Every hair on Leafpool's pelt bristled from shock. How many medicine cats did ThunderClan need? She knew Brightheart had offered to help Cinderpelt collecting herbs while Leafpool was away, but Leafpool had never imagined she would start doing any of the other medicine cat tasks. Brightheart looked up. Oh, Leafpool, you're back. Before Leafpool could reply, Cinderpelt emerged from her den with a mouthful of borage leaves. Here you are, Brightheart, she mewed, setting them down. This should help Mouse for his fever. Brightheart sprang to her paws. Thanks, I'll take them to her right away. Grabbing them in her jaws, she hurried across the camp to the Elder's den. Leafpool struggled with a pang of envy as sharp as a thorn. It looked like she wasn't needed anymore. Then she told herself to stop overreacting. She should have been grateful that Brightheart had made it possible for her to help RiverClan. A warm tongue rasped across her ear. Welcome back, Cinderpelt meowed. Tell me all about what happened. As Leafpool sat down, tail wrapped neatly over her paws, she tried to put Brightheart out of her mind. Helping with one thorn and a few herbs didn't make her a medicine cat. I'm home now, and everything will soon be back to normal. When she had finished reporting to Cinderpelt, she padded off to the fresh kill pile for something to eat. Her belly was yowling because she hadn't so much as a snuff of food since she left RiverClan. She was about to sink her teeth into a plump bowl when Squirrelflight and Ashfur appeared, their jaws full of fresh kill. Hi! Squirrelflight meowed, dropping her load on the pile. It's great to see you again. You'll never guess what happened while you were away. What? Squirrelflight's eyes were gleaming with satisfaction, so it couldn't be anything bad. Ashfur brushed his nose against Squirrelflight's fur. You tell Leafpool all about it, he mewed. I'll go back and collect the last squirrel you caught. Thanks! Squirrelflight flicked her ears at him. See you later. While she listened with half an ear to Squirrelflight telling her about the kitty pets in ShadowClan territory, another pang of envy sank its claws into Leafpool. Her sister and Ashfur were getting along so well together, working as a team, sleeping side by side in the warrior's den. Why couldn't she share anything like that with Crowfeather? Because you're a medicine cat, she reminded herself. She had no right to be in love, even if Crowfeather had been a ThunderClan cat. There was no hope that they could be together. Are you okay? Squirrelflight broke off from what she was saying to look at Leafpool with concern. Everything's all right in RiverClan, isn't it? Yes, everything's fine now. Leafpool longed to pour out her problems to her sister, but she couldn't take any cat into her confidence. Instead, she forced herself to sit and eat her bowl and make all the right admiring comments about the raid on the kitty pets. Oh, StarClan, she sighed. Why does your way have to be so difficult? Leafpool was still feeling confused as the sun went down, but when she curled up in her nest outside Cinderpelt's den, she fell asleep almost at once. She found herself padding through deep woods, the kind of place where she had often walked with warriors of StarClan. "Spotted Leaf?" she called. She was desperate to speak with her, to make sure her warrior ancestors weren't punishing her for thinking about Crowfeather. "Are you there?" But there was no trace of the medicine cat's sweet scent. Clumps of fern arched above her, and when she looked up for a glimpse of the starry warriors overhead, massive branches blocked her view of the sky. They shifted with a desolate creaking sound. The wind that stirred them probed her pelt with icy claws. "Where are you?" Panic surged through her. "Spotted Leaf, Feathertail, don't leave me alone!" She remembered her dream at the moon pool, when she had been unable to work out what the warrior ancestors were saying. She knew instinctively that they were not here now. Perhaps she had lost them forever. She began to run, scrambling over gnarled roots and forcing her way through thorn thickets. At last, Leafpool spotted a faint light through the trees. She veered towards it until she halted, gasping for breath. At the edge of a clearing, light filtered down, but it seemed gray and sickly, not like the silver blaze of the stars she was used to. It lay heavy on a thick coverage of dead leaves and clumps of fungus that glowed with the light of their own. In the center of the clearing, a gray rock pushed up at an angle out of the leaf mold. A massive tabby tom crouched there, his paws tucked under him and his gaze fixed intently on two cats who sat at the base of the rock, their faces turned towards him. Leafpool let out a gasp, so loud she was sure that the three cats must have heard her, and shrank back fearfully against the nearest tree trunk. She recognized the two cats on the ground instantly. One was her clanmate Brambleclaw, and the other his half-brother, Hawkfrost, and that meant she could put a name to the huge tabby on the rock, who looked so much like both of them. He must be their father, Tigerstar. Dun dun dun!
Ta-da!
Chapter 14. Shivering, Leafpool peered out into the clearing. If Tigerstar looked up, she felt as if his amber eyes could have burned away the tree trunk to reveal her cowering behind it. Instead, his eyes were fixed on his sons. But this was a dream. Had Tigerstar called them to him as they slept, in the same way that medicine cats walked in the dreams with StarClan? He had brought them somewhere Leafpool had never been before, a place of endless night where living cats never set paw. Even StarClan, she guessed, had never breathed the dank airs of this forest, or padded through its sickly light. Courage matters more than anything, Tigerstar was saying. Remember that when you are leaders. Hawkfrost meowed something that Leafpool couldn't catch, Tigerstar twitching his tail impatiently. Of course courage in battle is important, he rasped. But I'm talking about courage in the way you deal with your own clan. They must accept your orders, and if they question you, back up your decisions with tooth and claw. Leafpool's eyes stretched wide in disbelief. Firestar had never attacked a member of his clan, even if they disagreed with him. Weakness is dangerous, the huge tabby continued. You must hide your doubts, or better still, don't have doubts at all. You must always be certain that what you are doing is right. Was that how Tigerstar had felt? Leafpool wondered, when he had murdered Redtail and plotted the murder of Bluestar so that he could be clan leader? When he had led the dog pack to ThunderClan camp to gain revenge, and brought BloodClan into the forest to help him force the other clans into submission? Had he been completely sure that he was right? Hawkfrost's ice blue eyes were fixed on his father. He was obviously drinking in every word. Brambleclaw had his back to Leafpool so she couldn't see his expression, but his ears were pricked. Icy claws gripped her heart. Tigerstar was training his sons, like a warrior preparing an apprentice for battle. He was trying to turn them into the kind of murderous tyrant he had been. But how do we become leaders? Brambleclaw asked. I don't think Firestar will ever make me his deputy. I haven't even had an apprentice yet. The fur on Tigerstar's shoulders bristled. When you hunt, do you expect the mice to leap into your jaws? He hissed. No. You scent the prey, you stalk it, and then you pounce. It's the same with power. It won't come to you unless you seek it. Brambleclaw muttered something, and Leafpool saw Tigerstar's neck lie flat. Don't worry, he meowed. Both of you have the true spirit of warriors. I know you will succeed if you follow my paw steps closely. We will! Hawkfrost leapt to his paws. We'll do whatever you tell us. His enthusiasm chilled Leafpool. What could this bloodthirsty cat command his sons to do? She shrank back, shivering, and although she didn't think she had made a sound, the huge tabby's head swung around and he peered into the shadows where she was hiding. Terrified, Leafpool turned and fled, blundering among the roots and trailing stems of bramble, bracing herself to hear sounds of pursuit and to feel a massive paw grabbing her by the throat. There were no paths out of the dark forest. Trees stretched endlessly on every side, and there was no birdsong or rustle of prey, no sign that any living creature had ever trotted among these dark thickets. Where am I? There was no reply to Leafpool's silent wail. What had brought her to this place where Starkla had never set paw, where the spirit of a murderous cat could call his sons to him in his dreams? In her panic-stricken flight, Leafpool didn't look where she was going. Suddenly, the ground gave way under her paws. She let out a shocked yowl as she plunged into darkness. Her body hit the ground with a thump that drove the breath out of her. Her eyes flew open as she let out a gasp of terror. A tabby head was a mouth's length away from hers, amber eyes staring down at her. Are you okay? Brambleclaw meowed. Leafpool scrambled into a sitting position, scattering scraps of moss. She was in her nest outside Cinderpelt's den. The creamy light of dawn was seeping into the sky above the trees. Leafpool? Brambleclaw sounded concerned. His pelt was ruffled, with bits of bracken sticking in it, as if he had only recently roused from his own nest in the warrior's den. Is something the matter? I heard you cry out. What? No, I'm fine. Leafpool stared uncertainly up at Brambleclaw. Had he come to tell her that he'd seen her in his dream? Firestar's choosing cats to go to the gathering tonight, he meowed, yawning. Are you fit to come? I know you had a long journey yesterday. Relief swept through Leafpool from ears to tail tip. If Brambleclaw had really had the same dream, he hadn't noticed her in the shadows, but her relief faded as she wondered if he had chosen to visit his father in the dark forest. What was Tigerstar going to make him do to become clan leader? She got up, still feeling shaky but determined to hide it. I'm fine, she repeated. Tell Firestar I'd like to come. Brambleclaw dipped his head and backed away. Leafpool took a few deep breaths before giving her pelt a quick grooming. She had completely forgotten that this was the night of the full moon, even though her pelt pricked with fear. She wanted to watch Hawkfrost and Brambleclaw together. Would they give away what was happening as they slept? How often had Tigerstar called them to him in dreams before now? Leafpool knew that there was no cat she could ask for advice. Firestar and Cinderpelt both took their dreams from Starkland very seriously, but this dream was different. She didn't dare tell them about it. She was terrified of what the dream might mean, for she had never heard of any other medicine cat walking where she had walked. In that forest, she had felt further than ever from her warrior ancestors. If she lost touch with them altogether, would she be condemned to wander forever in that dark place and never find her way back to the light? Even though it was very early, she knew she wouldn't be able to go back to sleep now. Cinderpelt was still in her den, so Leafpool decided to go out and look for herbs. They could do with some more borage leaves, especially if Mousefur was feverish. She knew a patch of borage close to the abandoned two-leg nest. Leafpool slipped out of the camp and padded along the disused path. The gray, cloudy weather had given way to sunlight that shone warmly on her fur. Green shoots were thrusting up through the ground. Buds were swelling on the trees, and birds sang above Leafpool's head, promising plentiful fresh kill as a new leaf approached. The forest couldn't have been more different from the dark place of her dreams, yet Leafpool could not shake off the terror, and found herself glancing over her shoulder at every paw step. Her pelt crawled when she came in sight of the tumble-down nest, with shadowy holes in its side like eyes staring at her. Then she braced herself and padded more boldly through the trees, sniffing for the borage she had come to collect. What was there to be frightened of here, for a cat who had walked in Tigerstar's forest? She was on her way back, carrying a satisfying clump of fragrant borage leaves, when she spotted a flash of pale fur behind a clump of bracken. Curious, she circled the bracken and found herself on the edge of the mossy clearing where the cats went to battle training. Cloudtail was there with Daisy, standing over her with his ears pricked. No, he meowed. You've got to hit me hard. Daisy blinked at him with limpid blue eyes.
But I don't want to hurt you. But I don't want to hurt you.
Cloudtail's tail curled up. Don't worry, you won't. Come on, try again. The horse-placed cat gave him a doubtful look, then ran at him, flashing out a paw as she went past. Cloudtail dodged aside and hooked out Daisy's paw from under her so that she sprawled on the grass in a tangle of legs and fluffy tail.
That's not fair, she wailed. You never said you were going to do that.
Oh, right. Cloudtail couldn't keep the amusement out of his voice. Do you think in the thick of battle an enemy warrior will come up and say,
Be careful, I'm going to push you over now?
Daisy lashed her tail.
It's not like I'll ever need to fight.
You might. Cloudtail's gaze was serious now. If another clan attacked us, or other creatures like foxes or dogs, you need to know how to defend yourself. If you don't, you could get really hurt.
Oh, all right. Daisy gave her creamy chest fur a couple of licks. Show me again what I've got to do.
Leafpool thought Cloudtail had a tough task ahead of him if he was going to turn this kitty pet into a competent warrior. Daisy didn't seem to have any fighting instinct in her at all, but the white warrior seemed willing to teach her. Leafpool remembered how he had shown infinite patience with Brightheart after the she-cat had been attacked by the dogs and needed to learn a whole new way of fighting and hunting. Perhaps he could be able to teach Daisy to be a warrior too. Thinking about Brightheart made Leafpool want to get back to camp. She still didn't like the way the ginger and white she-cat was taking over all her duties. She waved her tail in greeting as she passed Cloudtail and Daisy. As she left the clearing, she heard Cloudtail meowing. This time, try to pretend I'm a badger and I'm going to eat your kits.
My kids really like you,
Daisy protested. Most warriors were up and about by the time Leafpool reached the stone hollow. She nodded to Sandstorm, who was leading Spidertail and Thornclaw out on a hunting patrol. Then she went to find Cinderpelt in her den, but it was Brightheart, not Cinderpelt, who came out to meet her.
Borage!
The ginger and white she-cat exclaimed.
Thanks, Leafpool. We have hardly any left, and Mousefur's fever isn't down yet.
As soon as Leafpool put down the borage at the mouth of the den, she grabbed up a couple of the stalks and hurried towards the clump of fern and bramble where the elders slept beneath the twisted brambles of a hazelbush. Leafpool let out a hiss of annoyance and slashed at the nearest bramble with her paw. Brightheart was behaving as if she were the medicine cat, and Leafpool was just her helper. What's the matter? Cinderpelt emerged from the mouth of her den, gave the remaining borage an appreciative sniff, then limped across to join Leafpool. Leafpool shrugged. Just too many medicine cats around here, she muttered. Cinderpelt's blue gaze rested on her. Leafpool looked and saw wisdom and compassion there, and something deeper she could not name. Be patient with Brightheart, the medicine cat mewed. Everything has changed for her. More quietly, she added, the greatest gift we could ask for is the courage to accept what StarClan sends us, however hard it seems.
Abaddon! Hi!
Strange Horticulture. Their title suggests strange yucca game.
What was it? Was it fun? Thank you so much for the raid, Abaddon! I hope you had fun.
I've never heard of that before, I don't think.
Yes, it was fun. Ah, nice.
Raid. You just named flowers. Oh, that's even cooler. I love naming things. I just noticed how unsynced my stream avatars are right now. Hold on a second. I need to... Maybe like this? I need them to start climbing up the sides again. Oh, there he goes.
I'm glad that you had fun, though.
What was your favorite name that you gave your flowers? Oh, dang you. They're totally disappearing. Aha! Okay, perfect. Walk. Wandering butthole? Oh my goodness.
Was it a pretty flower or was it like a butthole flower? Speaking of buttholes, I have my butt succulent. I can't tell if he's dying or not. Because he kind of looks thirsty, like he's wrinkly. But like maybe he has like wounds from when he was overwatered. So it's quite difficult. I can't tell. I gave him a lot of water already though, so I don't want to think that he already needs so much more water, but maybe it's really warm in my room or something. Maybe he's deciding what to do with his life. Yeah, you're right. I'll give him a little more time because some people say that you're only supposed to water your butt succulent like once per season. Once per season. But maybe and then other people are like, "Oh yeah, you need to give them water like every couple weeks." So maybe my butt succulent is one of those every other week ones? I don't know. But thank you again so much for the raid. Go have a break though, Abaddon, okay? You worked hard. You followed your plant dreams. You made history in that game. Okay, let's continue. Leafpool was surprised to see a flash of sadness in her mentor's face. She wanted to ask Cinderpelt what she was talking about, but she was afraid of the answer. Was she just talking about Brightheart and the courage she had shown in accepting her disfigured face? Or was she trying to tell Leafpool that she wasn't needed anymore, now that Brightheart had begun to take on the role of medicine cat? Before she could summon the courage to say anything, Cinderpelt disappeared back inside her den. Leafpool was about to follow her when she saw Cloudtail push his way through the thorn tunnel with Daisy just behind him. Daisy's kits, who were tumbling together at the entrance of the nursery, sprang up and scampered across the clearing to fling themselves on Cloudtail. The white warrior toppled onto his side and wrestled with the kits in a play fight, his claws carefully sheathed. "Hey, Berry Kit, get off!" he panted, giving the creamy white kit a gentle cuff around the ear. "Mouse Kit, that tickles! And who's got their teeth in my tail?" He rolled over, taking the smallest kit with him. "Hazel Kit, show a bit of respect for a warrior." "He's really good with them." Brightheart had returned and stood gazing at her mate with a wistful look. "He'll be a fantastic mentor," he went on. "He was so patient with me when I was injured. He worked out all kinds of fighting moves for me so I could be a warrior again." Leafpool felt an unexpected stab of sympathy for her. Maybe Cinderpelt was right, and Brightheart had more changes to get used to than any of them. It couldn't be easy to watch Cloudtail spending so much time with Daisy and her kits, but her sympathy dissolved when Mousefur patted up and spoke to Brightheart. I forgot to ask you," the mouse-furred elder meowed. "Can I have some poppy seeds? This fever's keeping me awake for 2 nights now." I'm not sure," Brightheart replied. "I don't think you should have poppy seeds on top of all that borage. Let's ask Cinderpelt if she has anything better." She led the elder behind the bramble and screened Cinderpelt's den, leaving Leafpool to stare after them in frustrated belief. Who's the medicine cat around here? If Mousefur or Brightheart had bothered to ask her, she would have happily suggested chewing a dandelion leaf instead of poppy seeds, but they'd act as if Leafpool wasn't even there. Maybe Cinderpelt would make Brightheart a medicine cat apprentice, but I'm still her apprentice, Leafpool thought miserably. Even though she had a proper name now, she would continue to learn from Cinderpelt for many more seasons. She had never heard of a medicine cat having 2 apprentices at the same time. Besides, she added to herself, Brightheart has a mate and a kit. She can't be a medicine cat, right? She felt as if a huge stone hung in her belly, weighing her down. Maybe this is a sign from StarClan after all, she thought. A sign that I'm not needed in ThunderClan anymore. That's jumping to conclusions, Leafpool. All of a sudden, Brightheart is working in the medicine cat den, and she's like, maybe I'm not needed in ThunderClan at all. I feel like the only reason why they're letting Brightheart help is because if she were on her own, she would be miserable because Cloudtail is busy hanging out with Daisy all the time now, you know? Like they did everything together, always, all the time. And now all of a sudden Cloudtail's doing it all with Daisy? That's gotta suck. That's gotta be rough. So giving her something to keep her mind off of things must really help. Leafpool just is a little bit, she's trying. She's working hard in her own way. Chapter 15. A few wisps of cloud drifted across the sky, but the full moon floated clear of them as ThunderClan cats crossed the tree bridge to the island. Leaping down onto the pebbly shore, Leafpool scanned the cats who were already there and spotted Ashfoot and Barkface making their way towards the line of bushes that guarded the center of the island. WindClan are here, so where's Crowfeather? She told herself to stop looking for him, but when she couldn't spot him, her belly clenched with disappointment. She paused in the shadow of the tree roots, tasting the air for his scent, but it was impossible to pick out one among so many of the mingled scents. Tail drooping, she trudged up the slope towards the barrier of bushes. She saw Brambleclaw and Hawkfrost padding up to touch noses. Amber eyes gazed into icy blue. Some unspoken message passed between them, then both cats turned and disappeared beneath the thick branches. Leafpool felt chilled to the depths of her fur. For a moment, the island vanished and she was back in that dark forest where Tigerstar was advising his sons on how to seize power. What were Hawkfrost and Brambleclaw planning? She heard the bushes rustle as two tabby toms pushed their way into the clearing, and she waited for the leaves to stop quivering before she followed them. Her paws tingled with a sense of danger. Was Brambleclaw plotting to take over ThunderClan, just as his bloodthirsty father had plotted so many seasons ago? She emerged from the bushes, blinking in the shining wash of moonlight that outlined every leaf and stem. Brambleclaw and Hawkfrost were sitting side by side in front of her, not far from the roots of the great oak. Leafpool was just in time to see Squirrelflight glare at them before settling down beside Ashfur. Tawny Pelt and Russet Fur joined them, and the four warriors greeted one another in a friendly way, as if they were remembering how they had recently fought side by side against the kitty pets. Mothwing was comfortably crouched near the edge of the clearing with her paws tucked under her, beside Cinderpelt and the other medicine cats. Leafpool patted over to her. Is everything okay? Is everything okay? Have you had any more trouble with the two-leg stuff? Mothwing shook her head. Everything's fine, thanks. Dawnflower and her kits have gone back to the nursery, with Mosspelt to keep an eye on them, and Beachpaw's training with Blackclaw again. That's great news. Leafpool purred, at the same moment as Little Cloud asked, What two-leg stuff? Mothwing began to tell him about the leaky green-silver liquid, while Leafpool glanced around the clearing. She flinched as she made out the lean gray-black shape of Crowfeather, sitting in a group of other WindClan warriors. She had been so sure he wasn't there. She stared at him for a few heartbeats, only tearing her gaze away when his ears twitched as if he knew he was being watched. A yowl sounded from the branches on the great oak. She looked up to see Blackstar standing on a branch that jutted over the clearing. Firestar was sitting on a branch just above him, with Leopardstar beside him. One star was was a couple tail lengths away, crouched in the fork between a thick bow, and the tree trunk. Ashfur and Mistyfoot were already sitting on the roots. Russetfur bounded up to join them as Blackstar stepped forward. Cats of all clans, he began. StarClan have brought us here again to gather in the light of the full moon. Firestar, will you begin? The ThunderClan leader stood up and dipped his head to Blackstar. ThunderClan have a new apprentice, he reported. Ashfur is now mentor to Birchpaw. Not far away, Leafpool saw Ashfur give his chest fur a couple of self-conscious licks, while Squirrelflight beside him gazed around proudly. Birchpaw himself hadn't come to this gathering. Daisy, one of the cats from the horse place, has brought her kits to ThunderClan. Firestar went on as soon as the meows of congratulation had died away. I have given them permission to stay as long as they like. A murmur of surprise rose up in the clearing, along with one or two yowls of protest.
Rowan Claw of ShadowClan sprang to his paws. Is that wise? He demanded. What good will kitty pets be? Leafpool saw her father's neck fur bristle, then relax again as if he were trying hard to keep his temper. Daisy isn't exactly a kitty pet, he replied evenly. She lived with the horses, not in the two-leg nest, and she did a brave thing in bringing her kits to us so the two-legs couldn't take them away. Rowan Claw flicked his tail. They'll never be warriors. You don't know that. Firestar meowed, with a glance at Cloudtail, who was sitting near the roots of the great oak. A good warrior doesn't have to be forest-born, just as being forest-born doesn't guarantee being a good warrior. Daisy is settling in well, and her 3 kits will be apprenticed as soon as they're old enough. They'll soon learn the warrior code. Maybe, grunted Roanclaw, sitting down again. Leafpool was close enough to hear him mutter to Oakfur, Why do we expect him to understand the importance of being clan-born? Firestar would fill the forest with kitty pets if he could. Oakfur twitched his ears. You gotta admire him, he mewed. You'd think Blackstar would turn down the chance to have 3 extra warriors for the clan? Roanclaw just snorted. While Leafpaw was listening to ShadowClan warriors, she had missed the end of her father's report. When she started paying attention again, Leopardstar was on her paws. 2 legs have left poison in our territory, she meowed. Ivytail and one of her kits have died, but all our other cats are recovering, thanks to Mothwing and Leafpool, who came to help us from ThunderClan. Her gaze swept the clearing and fixed on Leafpool. The RiverClan leader dipped her head in a gesture of thanks before she sat down again. Embarrassed to be praised in front of every cat, Leafpool studied her paws. ShadowClan have reason to thank ThunderClan too, Blackstar began, going on to recount what had happened. Leafpool knew how hard it must be for him to admit that his clan hadn't been able to deal with the trouble without ThunderClan's help, but at least he didn't try to hide the debt he owed. Since then, the kitty pets have stayed inside the Tulip Garden, he finished. One Star jumped to his paws. What? Oh my god. Sorry, I read ahead. One Star jumped to his paws. What kind of clan leader are you? He growled. Aren't you ashamed that you needed help from another clan? You too, he added, rounding on Leopardstar. RiverClan has its own medicine cat. Why do you have to go crawling to ThunderClan? He ignored the muttering that broke out below him as he glared at Firestar. It's time ThunderClan stopped paying so much attention to what's happening in the other clans. Your warriors ignore our boundaries and think they can tell every cat what to do. We all made the journey here together, and ThunderClan is no stronger than any other. Jesus Christ, dude. Before Firestar could reply, Cloudtail leapt up. His white pelt was bristling, his tail fluffed out twice its size. You were glad enough for ThunderClan's help when WindClan were starving, he snarled. That was different, One Star retorted. Exactly. Firestar's voice was quiet, but full of authority. Back then, we had to join together to survive what the Tuligs were doing to the forest. I don't believe StarClan would want us to stop helping each other now. They would if it meant keeping the clans separate, One Star insisted. There have always been 4 clans. Every kid knows that. More protests broke out. WindClan would have been destroyed without us, Dustpelt yowled. One Star took a pace forward, his claws scraping in the bark. Look up at the moon, he rasped. Do you see clouds covering it? No, it's shining brightly, and that means StarClan agrees with what I'm saying. No cat has ever claimed that there shouldn't be 4 clans, Firestar defended himself. But that doesn't mean StarClan wants us to turn our backs on another when trouble comes. I can see why you would say that, One Star hissed. You think your clan is the strongest and make sure to prove it to the rest of us whenever you get the chance. Mouse dung, Blackstar growled. ThunderClan helped us once. If they set paw on our territory without an invitation, they'll find out just how strong we are. Leafpool dug her claws into the ground. Why couldn't the other leaders see that Firestar was right? Even if there were 4 clans, that didn't mean that they couldn't help each other out in a crisis. She turned to Cinderpelt, but before she could ask her mentor what she thought, she felt a light touch on her shoulder. Drawing her breath sharply, she looked around to see Crowfeather crouching in the shadows at the edge of the clearing. I have to talk to you, he whispered, jerking his head in the direction of the bushes. Cinderpelt was staring up at the clan leaders. Cautiously, Leafpool slid back until the shadows engulfed her too. The overhang branch screened them from the cats in the clearing as they pushed their way through the encircling bushes. Together they retreated a few paw steps towards the shore of the island until they could put a jutting rock between themselves and the gathering place. What happened to you? Crowfeather's eyes looked hurt. Why didn't you come to meet me that night? Leafpool swallowed nervously. Don't be angry with me, she pleaded. I couldn't come. I had to help Mothwing. Crowfeather lashed his tail. It's no good stealing moments together like this, he murmured. I never get to see you. I know. I feel the same. But Crowfeather, I'm a medicine cat. Leafpool knew this was her chance to tell Crowfeather that there was no point in loving her. But here, standing beside him, her pelt brushing his scent flooding over her, she couldn't begin to find the right words. For a moment her guilt and anxiety faded. She felt as though nothing mattered except being close to him, gazing up into his burning eyes. I know there are problems, Crowfeather went on, scraping the earth with his claws. You're a medicine cat and we're in different clans. The whole warrior code is against us. But there must be a way. Leafpool blinked at him. How? All their difficulties came rushing back until she felt trapped by them. The gray-black warrior was so tense she could almost see lightning playing around his fur. I wish we could just escape everything, he burst out. Clans, traditions, all the rules and boundaries. I want to get away from it all. Escape? Leafpool echoed. Do you mean go away? Was Crowfeather really suggesting that they leave their clans and the lives they had known ever since they were kids? She would have to say goodbye to her mother and father, to Squirrelflight and Sorreltail, and to her mentor, Cinderpelt. More than that, she would have to give up her life as a medicine cat. Pain twisted in her belly. How could she face never again walking in the dreams with StarClan, never seeing Spotted Leaf, never healing her clanmates with the help of her warrior ancestors? Crowfeather nudged her. Leafpool? Unhappily, she shook her head. We can't leave our clans. That's not the answer. I don't know what the answer is either, he broke off with a hiss. Leafpool realized that the sounds of argument from the clearing had died away. They could just hear Blackstar drawing the meeting to a close. It's time to go. Crowfeather muttered. Tomorrow at sunhigh, go to collect herbs by the stream near the stepping stones. I'll come and talk to you there. Please. Without waiting for her reply, he whipped around and skirted the bushes until he reached his clanmates as they made for the tree bridge. Leafpool waited for a few heartbeats before creeping back along the branches into the clearing. It didn't look as if any cat had noticed her leaving to talk to Crowfeather. The medicine cats were still huddled together on the edge of the bushes. Leafpool padded over to join them. I've had that same dream again and again, Little Cloud was meowing anxiously, warnings of danger to come. It's StarClan never telling me what the danger is. He glanced anxiously from cat to cat. Have any of you had any clearer signs? Hi, Mikarin. Leafpool didn't look at Mothwing. There were now 2 medicine cats whose dreams were closed off from StarClan. Her warrior ancestors certainly hadn't sent her the dreams of the dark forest where she had seen Tigerstar and his sons. She couldn't let any cat know she hadn't received the dreams Little Cloud was describing, and she hoped that Cinderpelt wouldn't ask her directly. Mothwing broke the silence. I don't know what any of these dreams mean, she mewed. Leafpool realized how careful she was being not to reveal her lack of faith in StarClan. But we should warn our clan leaders to be alert for danger. Cinderpelt dipped her head approvingly. Good idea. But what sort of danger? Barkface asked with a twitch of his whiskers. WindClan hasn't seen much that could threaten us since we moved in, unless you count the fox, and that was quickly dealt with. We had the problem with the 2-leg poison, meowed Mothwing. Glancing at Leafpool, she added, but StarClan sent a warning about that. And we had trouble with the kitty pets. Little Cloud nodded to Cinderpelt. ThunderClan helped us sort that out, so StarClan wouldn't still be sending dreams about it. There must be another danger, Cinderpelt decided, something that hasn't come yet, and something that could affect every clan. All of us must keep watch for signs, Barkface rumbled. By the time of the half-moon, StarClan will have shown us something more. Maybe by this time the half-moon comes, StarClan will show us more. His words were the signal for them to leave. The clearing was almost empty as the last of the cats made their way out through the bushes. Leafpool emerged to find the stretch of shore beside the tree bridge crowded with cats milling around the roots, waiting for their turn to cross. Leafpool let her gaze travel over them. When she spotted Crowfeather, she felt as if a bolt of lightning had rippled through her fur. The WindClan warrior sprang nimbly onto the tree trunk and began making his way to the shore. balancing easily with his tail straight up in the air. Leafpool hardly knew how she stopped her paws from dashing after him, even though they were surrounded by cats from every clan. "StarClan, help me," she begged. "I don't know what to do." She too smitten. She too smitten. I wish we had counted how many cats died in the first season. That would have been the first season, the first series, because that would have been really. Then we could have like a list of all the total deaths of cat. Maybe I can look it up actually. How many confirmed cat deaths were there in the first series of Warriors? Lists of deaths. Nice. Okay. Oh my god. Okay. I don't want to read these because... So, the prophecy begins? Alright. Oh my god, there's so many. Okay, we're not counting... Are we counting lives? No, we're not counting lives. We're counting final deaths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Oh wait, sorry. I counted these wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 47? How should I add that? Edible text. Death toll. 47. First. 47. Current death toll. First series. 47. Current death toll. We'll do 47 plus and current death toll 20 plus. Nice. Wait, can I make this like center? Center. Nice. Nice, 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 nice. Okay. Floor 21! No. Uh-oh, why is one of my books open? I don't want that page there. Okay, there we go. That's so many. And then there's like some random, like in between prophecy begins and new prophecy, which I don't know what that means. The new prophecy, that's what this is, right? Yeah. Oh my god, there's so many less deaths in a new prophecy versus this one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Wait, 11. 16. Yeah. Dang. It's like the first series, they had all the deaths. And then New Prophecy, they had less. And then Power of Three, which is the next series, has even less deaths. Omen of the Stars. What even is Omen of the Stars? Is that the one after this? I can't remember. I don't know. Well, that's good to know. All right. Chapter 16. What time is it? So maybe we can read 2 more chapters and then I'll call it so that we actually have a decent amount to read next time without being like a weird cat. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Chapter 16. Daisy, where are you? Squirrelflight stopped and looked around when she heard the furious yowl that came from the medicine cat's den. Oh. Yeah, okay. A moment later, Brightheart appeared, carrying one of Daisy's kits by the scruff. The tiny creature was wailing miserably, his paws thrashing the air. His littermates crept out after them, heads down and tails drooping, and huddled together beside the brambles that shielded the den. The horse-place cat had been in camp long enough for her kits to grow strong and more confident, and to begin exploring the camp, and that was likely to mean trouble. Squirrelflight's whiskers twitched as she remembered some of the things she and Leafpool had got up to before they were apprenticed. Brightheart dropped the kit she was carrying. It was Mousekit, Squirrelflight realized, taking a closer look. The ginger and white she-cat's good eye was blazing with anger. Daisy, come here! There was no response from the nursery, but a heartbeat later Daisy appeared from the thorn tunnel and raced across the camp to confront Brightheart. Cloudtail followed her more slowly. What's the matter? What are you doing to my kits? Daisy demanded. Ask your kits what they've been doing in Cinderpelt's den, Brightheart retorted, and stop making that noise, she added to the kit that she had dropped, who was still wailing, his tiny pink jaws gaping wide. I haven't hurt you. What happened? Daisy's blue eyes were just as furious, and her long, creamy fur couldn't hide the tension in her muscles. For a moment, Squirrelflight thought she might fly at Brightheart with one of the fighting moves Cloudtail had been teaching her. Squirrelflight knew Brightheart could look after herself, but Daisy might not get away unscratched. She patted over in case some cat was needed to stop the fur flying. Your kids came into Cinderpelt's den and started messing with the herbs, Brightheart explained. Did you eat anything? She hissed, rounding on Berrykit and Hazelkit. Any of you? Muted with terror, the kits shook their head. Squirrelflight knew that part of Brightheart's anger was fueled by fear that the kits might have eaten something dangerous. Cinderpelt wouldn't keep anything like deathberries among her supplies, but there were plenty of remedies that could give a cat a nasty bellyache if they ate too much. Brightheart's fur began to lie flat again, but annoyance still crackled off her like lightning in Greenleaf. Just go ahead and look at the mess they've made, she meowed to Daisy. Why weren't you keeping an eye on them? She was with me, Cloudtail meowed. And does that make it okay for her kits to spoil Cinderpelt's supplies? Brightheart challenged him. They didn't know better. They should, Brightheart snarled back at her mate. Do you think we had nothing better to do than clean up after them? I spent all day yesterday collecting berries. Look, I'm sorry, Daisy mewed, glancing uneasily from Cloudtail to Brightheart and back again. She nudged Mousekit to his paws and collected the others with a sweep of her tail. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. You do that, Brightheart snapped. The horse-place cat headed back to the nursery, herding her kits in front of her. Squirrelflight heard Mousekit complain. That ugly cat frightened me? Oh my god. Yo. What?
That ugly cat frightened me. Then you shouldn't have gotten into trouble, Daisy replied. She didn't even scold her for calling her an ugly cat. Oh.
Squirrelflight saw Brightheart flinch at what Mousekit said. She and Cloudtail were nose to nose, their tail tips twitching back and forth.
I'll help clean up,
Squirrelflight offered, backing around the brambles. She didn't want to get involved in a quarrel between Brightheart and her mate. When she turned around, she saw why Brightheart had been so angry. Berries were scattered all over the ground at the mouth of the den, and herbs lay in untidy clumps. Some of the leaves had been torn off their stems and were covered in dirt. They would probably have to be thrown out. Oh, dang. Squirrelflight began to roll the berries that could be salvaged into a pile. She wondered where Leafpool and Cinderpelt had gone. After a few moments, she heard another cat padding up behind her.
There you are,
meowed Ashfur, touching his nose with her shoulder. I thought we were going hunting. Why are Cloudtail and Brightheart glaring at each other like a couple of badgers? Squirrelflight went on sorting berries as she explained. Clanborn kits would know not to do this sort of thing, Ashfur commented. Maybe these kitty pets will never settle in here properly.
What did you just say?
Squirrelflight spun around to face him.
Have you forgotten that my father was a kitty pet?
Ashfur blinked. I'm sorry. But Firestar's pretty special. Most kitty pets couldn't live in our sort of life. They need their two legs to look after them. Squirrelflight let out a furious hiss, and her claws slid out. It took massive effort to shield them again and go on sorting berries. How dare Ashfur make judgments based on a cat's birth? She fumed. Did that mean he thought less of her because she was half kitty pet? Couldn't he see that she and Leafpool, Cloudtail and his kit Whitepaw were as important to the clan as any worry who was forest-born through and through? Before Ashfur could say anything else, the bramble scream shook as Leafpool and Cinderpelt brushed past. Both medicine cats carried large bunches of chickweed. What's going on here? Cinderpelt asked, dropping her mouthful. Squirrelflight explained what had happened for the second time, while Leafpool began examining the scattered leaves and piling up the ones that would have to be thrown out. Kits! Cinderpelt grunted, nosing a muddy and crumpled stack of yarrow leaves. Still, they didn't need anything. If they didn't need anything, there's no real harm. A lot of extra work, though, Ashfur pointed out. We can manage. Leafpool meowed sharply, and Squirrelflight glanced at her in surprise. I'll throw out these damaged herbs and go collect some more. A bolt of strong emotion made Squirrelflight's fur stand on end. She stared at her sister. Was that guilt Leafpool was feeling? Why should she feel guilty about collecting herbs? Even more mysteriously, mixed with the guilt, there seemed to be a thrill of anticipation, and beneath it all a layer of piercing unhappiness. Squirrelflight told herself her sister was just tired. The night before had been the half moon, when Leafpool and the other medicine cats paid their regular visit to the moon pool. Oh my god, so this means that they've been meeting up pretty regularly? Because the night of the gathering they said, oh yeah, we're gonna meet me tomorrow. And it's been a half moon, so it's been 2 weeks, and this is implying that she's gonna go meet him again. Dang. Dang, girl! Yet Leafpool hadn't been her normal self for some time. In fact, she'd been as jumpy as a grasshopper since the gathering.
I'll help you,
Squirrelflight offered.
Ashfur, you better hunt without me. I'll join you later if I can.
Ashfur gave her a long look. Okay. With a nod to Cinderpelt, he left. Squirrelflight opened her mouth to call him back, wishing she hadn't spoken so sharply to him, but her need to talk to Leafpool was greater. Besides, perhaps it was best for them to both have some space after their quarrel. Which herbs do we need to throw out? She asked her sister. These, Leafpool pointed out with her tail. The rest are okay, I think. Squirrelflight divided the heap of bruised and dirty leaves into 2 bunches and picked up one of them. Cinderpelt had begun to carry the herbs and berries worth keeping back into her den. Leafpool picked up the remaining herbs and followed Squirrelflight out of the camp. They carried the leaves to the rough ground a few fox lengths away from the entrance, where the cats went to make their dirt. It's good to get out of there, Squirrelflight remarked, when she had finished spitting out scraps of sharp-tasting leaf. She wanted to tell Leafpool about Ashfur's hurtful comments, but now she could see how tense and miserable Leafpool was. Her quarrel didn't seem as important. Is everything okay with you? She asked. Why shouldn't it be? Leafpool scraped the ground in front of her and sniffed at an unfurling frond of bracken. When Leafpool suggested collecting more herbs, I just thought you seemed, well, weird, sort of. A thought struck her, and she added, You're not worried about Brightheart, are you? I mean, you're Cinderpelt's real apprentice. Brightheart is just helping out. Leafpool blinked. No, of course not. I'm not worried about Brightheart. Look, Squirrelflight, she went on. We better split up if we're going to collect herbs. Otherwise it will take all day. I know Cinderpelt wants more catmint. Do you think you could fetch us some from the abandoned two-leg nest? Squirrelflight stared at her. It couldn't be more obvious that Leafpool was trying to get rid of her. Where are you going to go? Oh, near the Shadow Clan border, maybe? Another bolt of guilt and impatience flashed from her, making every hair on Squirrelflight's pelt tingle. She was sure Leafpool was lying, and she clamped her teeth shut on a yowl of outrage. We never lie to each other. You know, she mewed, trying to sound calm, you are weird these days. It feels like something's changed. She had meant the words as a joke, an attempt to recover the closeness to her sister that somehow seemed to have vanished, but instead of being amused, Leafpool flinched as if a bee had stung her. Her eyes narrowed. I'm going to collect herbs, she meowed coldly. I'm a medicine cat. You can't expect to share every part of my life. Turning her back on her sister, she stalked off into the undergrowth. For a few heartbeats, Squirrelflight was tempted to follow her, but if Leafpool found out, she would be even more furious. But Squirrelflight couldn't just ignore her sister's unhappiness, not when they had meant so much to each other. She would just have to keep her eyes open and wait for the chance to discover what was wrong. The hooting of an owl woke Squirrelflight. Faint moonlight filtered through the branches of the warrior den, outlining the curled-up bodies of her clanmates. The den was filled with the warmth of their breath. Squirrelflight's jaws gaped in a yawn, but she didn't feel like going back to sleep. She was wide awake now, and restless, sliding out of her nest, being careful not to wake Ashfur, who was sleeping a tail length away. She crept up between the overhanging branches and into the clearing. The moon, waning now to the thinnest crescents, like a claw scratch in the indigo sky, shed just enough light to see the boundaries of the hollow. Clumps of bramble and fern cast dark shadows around the edges. Opposite her, beside the entrance to the thorn tunnel, Squirrelflight could just make out the pale pelt of Cloudtail, sitting on guard. She flexed her claws, wondering whether to tell the white warrior she felt like some night hunting. Suddenly, a movement flickered in the corner of her eye, and she turned to see Leafpool emerging from the medicine cat's den. Squirrelflight almost called out to her. Then she realized how strangely her sister was behaving. Leafpool glanced around carefully before she crept out of the shelter of the brambles, although she clearly failed to spot her sister's dark ginger pelt in the shadows by the warrior cat den. Then she headed around the edge of the clearing, hugging the darkness as if she were being hunted like a mouse. Her tension shivered through Squirrelflight from ears to tail tip. All Squirrelflight's earlier uneasiness returned as she padded on to the shadow as after her sister. Placing each paw silently on the ground, she didn't want to disturb Cloudtail or any of the other warriors until she knew what Leafpool was trying to do. Leafpool was in some kind of trouble, and this could be the chance Squirrelflight needed to find out more. Before she reached the thorn barrier across the entrance to the hollow, and risked being seen by Cloudtail, the young medicine cat veered sharply into a clump of brambles. Squirrelflight heard a brief thrashing and froze as Cloudtail's head swung around. But after listening for a few moments, the white warrior twitched the tip of his tail and turned back to watch the tunnel again. Her heart was pounding. Squirrelflight slipped into the brambles after Leafpool. This was a corner of the hollow that was still too overgrown to be used for sleeping or storing fresh kill. To her surprise, Squirrelflight saw that part of the rock wall had crumbled away here, and it wouldn't be too difficult for an agile cat to climb right to the top of the cliff. Leafpool had found a secret way out of camp. It occurred to Squirrelflight that her sister must know the way very well, to have vanished already. How many times has she used this exit before? Squirrelflight launched herself upward, fighting her way through the tendrils of brambles and sinking her claws into a straggling bush that had rooted itself in a crack. At last she scrambled over the edge of the hollow and dived for cover into the nearest clump of ferns. Her ears pricked for any sound in the hollow below that might mean some cat had spotted her. But everything was quiet except for the rustle of wind in the branches. Gradually, Squirrelflight's racing heartbeat slowed, and she dared to poke her head out of the ferns to look around. Leafpool was nowhere to be seen, but it didn't take long for Squirrelflight to pick up her scent. The trail skirted the top of the hollow, then set off into the forest. Squirrelflight followed, pausing every now and then to taste the air. She wanted to believe that Leafpool had left the hollow on Medicine Cat business, but as far as she knew, there were no herbs that had to be gathered by moonlight. Besides, the way Leafpool had sneaked out of camp, and the mingled guilt and excitement Squirrelflight picked up from her, meant that she must be doing something she shouldn't. You could have told me, Squirrelflight thought crossly. Maybe I could have helped. Leafpool's scent trail wound around hazel thickets and clumps of fern. After a while, Squirrelflight realized she could hear the gurgling of the stream that marked the border with WindClan. She stopped and thought for a moment. Could Leafpool be going to the moon pool? If she were, she would be furious that Squirrelflight was intruding on a Medicine Cat ritual. But if that were the case, why sneak out of camp? Leafpool wouldn't mind if every cat in the clan knew she was going to share tongues with StarClan. Squirrelflight went on, doing her best to follow the trail, but the woodland was full of the smell of newly bursting leaves and rising sap. Mouth-watering hints of prey crossed and recrossed Leafpool's scent, until Squirrelflight could hardly distinguish it from all the others that flooded her senses. Several times she had to stop and take deep, gulping breaths before she could go on. Once she thought she had lost the trail on the bare patch of ground where rocks pushed up close to the surface. But she picked it up again on the other side. The scent vanished completely in a patch of marshy ground, and though Squirrelflight patted all over it with her nose to the ground, she couldn't find it again. Huh, she grunted. Call yourself a hunter? She could still hear the sounds of running water, and she slid silently through the trees until she came in sight of the stream. The breeze brought WindClan scent to her. Could Leafpool have crossed the border onto WindClan territory? For a heartbeat, Squirrelflight thought of crossing to see if she could pick up her sister's scent on the other side, but there was always a chance some WindClan cat might have felt like hunting at night. If she were spotted on their territory, it would be big trouble, with One Star feeling the way he did about ThunderClan. Squirrelflight decided she would have a better chance of finding out what Leafpool was up to if she went back and waited outside the hollow until she returned. She crouched among the ferns above the place where the cliff had crumbled away, guessing Leafpool would return the same way she had left. Her belly growled with hunger, but she didn't want to hunt in case she missed her sister. The sky was growing milky with the first sign of dawn when she heard a cat approaching through the undergrowth. Squirrelflight drew in her sister's scent. Rising to her paws, she saw Leafpool coming towards her, her head lowered and her tail brushing the grass. Where have you been? She demanded. Leafpool's head shot up and she stared at her sister in dismay. What are you doing here? Have you been spying on me? No, you daft furball. Squirrelflight padded up to her sister, wanting to brush against her fur and reassure her, but Leafpool drew back a pace, and her eyes were wary. I saw you leave last night, that's all, and I'm worried about you. I know something's wrong. Can't you tell me what it is? The strength of Leafpool's emotion almost swept Squirrelflight off her paws. She could tell her sister longed to confide in her, but a barrier stronger than thorns blocked her way. Squirrelflight's belly clenched. Leafpool's problem must be even more serious than she had thought. Leafpool shook her head. Nothing's wrong. Leave me alone. Hardly gonna do that now, Squirrelflight scoffed. Leafpool, this isn't like you, sneaking off. Sneaking? Leafpool hissed, her tail fluffing out in fury. You're a fine one to talk. Why is it okay for you to sneak out and follow me? I didn't, Squirrelflight protested. I only wanted to know what was wrong. It's none of your business. If you trusted me, you wouldn't ask all these questions. Fine, Squirrelflight snapped. My sister's in trouble and I'm supposed to ignore that? If I wanted your help, I would ask for it, Leafpool flashed back to her. You know you need help. Squirrelflight made a huge effort to control her fury. If it's Medicine Cat stuff, why don't you talk to Cinderpelt? Cinderpelt never listens to me. Leafpool's voice was sad. She's got Bright Art to help her. She doesn't even need me. That's the most mouse-brained thing I've ever heard. Leafpool let out a hiss. And you're so wise and clever all of a sudden? I suppose you're going to tell Firestar about this too. Squirrelflight's anger died away. Her sister seemed so desperate. It was impossible to go on challenging her. Wherever she had been doing, it hadn't made her happy. I won't tell any cat, she meowed quietly. You better get back to your den before you're missed. Leafpool nodded and brushed past, then turned and gave her such a sorrowful look that Squirrelflight felt a pang piercing her heart, as sharp as a thorn. I'm sorry, she murmured, her voice so low that Squirrelflight could scarcely hear her. I'd tell you if I could, I promise. Without waiting for a reply, she disappeared over the edge of the hollow. Squirrelflight stayed where she was, shaking like a leaf in the wind. She knew that there was no point in going back to her den and trying to sleep. Her belly growled again, reminding her how long it had been since she had eaten. She would hunt for a while, a vole for herself, maybe, and then as much prey as she could catch for the fresh kill pile. She turned and plunged back into the forest, and jumped as the undergrowth rustled and Brambleclaw stepped out. Was that Leafpool I saw just now? Where'd she been? I have no idea, Squirrelflight replied, her pelt prickling. She doesn't need permission to leave camp. Brambleclaw's eyes narrowed. He clearly guessed Squirrelflight was hiding something from him. It's not safe for cats to wander around alone at night, he commented. I think it was medicine cat stuff. Squirrelflight automatically lied to protect her sister. You know, looking for herbs. Brambleclaw blinked. Squirrelflight wasn't sure she'd convinced him. He might have noticed Leafpool hadn't been carrying any herbs when she vanished into camp. And why would she have climbed down the cliff instead of using the tunnel? Squirrelflight's tail twitched in her eagerness to get away before the tabby warrior could go on questioning her. I'm going hunting, she mewed briskly. So am I. Brambleclaw hesitated, as if he were about to suggest they hunted together. That was the last thing Squirrelflight wanted. Well, I'm going this way. She swung around and headed in the direction of the Shadow Clan border, glancing over her shoulder to add, See you later. She could feel the tabby warrior's gaze following her as she plunged into the undergrowth, and she couldn't stifle a pang of regret deep within her belly. Once, she would have told him everything about Leafpool, trusting him to do everything he could to help. Now she didn't trust him at all, especially not to keeping her sister's secret, whatever it was. Squirrelflight couldn't imagine what it could be, but fear for Leafpool hung over her like a heavy black cloud that would soon unleash a storm. Dun 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 dun! Chapter 17. How long is this chapter? Ooh, this one's a spicy thing, though. Oh, it's a long chapter, though. I mean, I do have time for one more chapter. Okay, let's read one more chapter because this one's with Crowfeather. And I want to know what they've been up to. Leafpool picked her way through the undergrowth, ears pricked for the sound of pursuit. Ever since she had returned from meeting Crowfeather to find her sister waiting for her, she had been terrified of being followed. Her belly clenched with pain as sharp as hunger when she imagined the rest of her clan finding out what she was doing. They'll find out sooner or later, a voice inside her mewed. The quarrel with Squirrelflight still haunted her. Without the closeness she had shared with her sister since they were kits, Leafpool felt utterly alone in her clan. But she couldn't tell Squirrelflight the truth, and she couldn't give up her meetings with Crowfeather. He was the only cat she could talk to now. She tried to work up the courage to tell Cinderpelt, but the medicine cat seemed obsessed with restocking supplies, hunting through the territory for the tiniest signs of new growth. Besides, Leafpool was afraid Cinderpelt had already guessed her secret, and was showing her disapproval and uncharacteristic quickness of temper. She missed the afternoons they had spent talking back in the forest, when their paws had been busy sorting berries and leaves. Now her mentor seemed distant and more judgmental, less of a friend than she had always been. Aw, dang. In desperation, Leafpool had considered telling her mother, approaching her one evening by the fresh kill pile, but Sandstorm had been discussing the best hunting grounds with Dustpelt, only giving her daughter a friendly nod before returning to the debate. As for Sorreltail, Leafpool's friend was so close to having kits that she spent all her time with Daisy and Ferncloud in the nursery. Apart from when Cinderpelt asked her to take strength-building herbs to the queens, Leafpool kept away. She paused when she heard a twig snap, freezing with one palm midair, but it was only a squirrel, jumping down from an oak tree and racing in the opposite direction. Leafpool took a deep breath and carried on. A little earlier, at sunset, heavy rain had fallen from thundery black clouds. The skies were clear now, but every fern and grass stem was loaded with drops of water, reflecting the pale glow of moonlight. Leafpool's pelt had soaked through long ago, the cold seeping into her skin. Stopping to shake herself, she gazed up at the waning moon. It would have to wax again before her next visit to the moon pool. Yet she longed to lie down beside the water and share tongues with StarClan in her dreams. But what if StarClan refused to speak to her again? Spotted Leaf, she whispered, I wish you'd tell me what to do. Leafpool's head spun with weariness. She had been meeting up with Crowfeather every few nights, leaving her short of sleep and restless whenever she was away from him. During the day, she had to pretend Cinderpelt and the rest of the clan that she was as committed as ever to being a medicine cat, and the only important thing was where to find juniper berries or easing the stiffness in the elders' leaf-bare damp joints. You can't go on like this, a small voice warned her. Crowfeather had said the same thing. We can't go on like this, Leafpool. We'll never be together unless we leave our clans. Leafpool had stared at him in horror, though through their difficulties, her fear and guilt wearing with her love, she had never really imagined that they would have to leave their clans. Crowfeather, we can't. Crowfeather shook his head. It's the only way. Will you think about it, please? Reluctantly, Leafpool had nodded. All right, I will. But how could she give up her life as a medicine cat? Give up her clan, her family, her friends? Whatever decision she made, she was afraid she would not survive the loss. Close to the border stream, she tasted the air for the first traces of Crowfeather's scent. Every hair on her pelt prickled with excitement as she detected it, and a heartbeat later she made out the lean, gray-black warrior waiting for her in the shadow of a bush on the WindClan side of the stream. Crowfeather, she called, bounding forward. Leafpool! Crowfeather sprang to his paws and his tail shot straight up as he spotted her. She halted on the brink of the stream. Crowfeather climbed down the bank and splashed through the water as if he hardly realized it was there. Hauling himself out onto the ThunderClan side, he padded up to Leafpool, droplets spinning from his pelt. As he shook himself, his scent wreathed around her, and she shut her eyes blissfully. I'm so glad you could come, Leafpool purred. Did you have any trouble getting away from camp? Crowfeather was about to reply when he froze, ears standing up. At the same moment, Leafpool heard a rustling in the bushes behind her. ThunderClan scent flooded her senses. She spun around. All right, Leafpool. All right, Squirrelflight, come out, she snapped. I know you're there. There was brief silence. Then the break-in in front of her parted and out stepped not Squirrelflight, but Cinderpelt. Her mentor. Oh my god. What are you doing here? Leafpool stammered, casting an anguished glance over his shoulder at Crowfeather. The medicine cat limped forward and faced her calmly. You know what I'm doing, Leafpool. I'm here to tell you that this has to stop. Leafpool stiffened. I don't know what you mean. Don't lie to me, Leafpool. Not with that WindClan warrior standing there, on our territory. There was no sign of anger in her blue eyes, only concern. Her steady gaze pinned Leafpool like a claw, until the younger cat had to look away. I suppose Squirrelflight told you to follow me? She muttered. Squirrelflight? No, I was collecting herbs when I picked up your scent, and a WindClan cat's close by. I came to see what was going on. Besides, do you think I didn't suspect you've been sneaking out at night? Terror flashed through Leafpool. You've been spying on me! Didn't need to, Cinderpelt meowed. You're obviously so exhausted that you can't do your job properly. Only yesterday you tried to give Soot for borage leaves instead of watermint for his bellyache. As for Crowfeather, I can't say I'm surprised. Do you think I haven't noticed the two of you at gatherings? I'm not blind, Leafpool. Wait, Crowfeather began, stepping forward to Leafpool's side. This is between me and Leafpool. She's not betraying her clan, if that's what you think. Cinderpelt fixed him with a stern gaze. I never imagined she would, but she shouldn't be here with you, and you know that as well as I do. Crowfeather bristled. Leafpool's belly lurched, terrified that the aggressive young warrior might launch himself at the medicine cat with claws unsheathed. It's okay, Crowfeather, she mewed. I can handle this. Reluctantly, she added, You'd better go back to your camp. And leave you alone to get your ears clawed? Cinderpelt won't do that. Please, Leafpool begged. Crowfeather hesitated a moment longer, limbs stiff with anger. Then he swung around and bounded back across the stream. Leafpool's gaze followed him until he vanished into the undergrowth on the other side. Turning back to her mentor, Leafpool sank her claws into the ground. We aren't doing any harm, she mewed. Leafpool! Cinderpelt's tone hardened and she lashed her tail. Crowfeather belongs to a different clan, but that's only the beginning. You're a medicine cat. You can't fall in love. Not with Crowfeather, not with any cat. You've always known that. I knew it, Leafpool wailed inwardly, but I never knew what it would mean. It's not fair, she meowed. I've got feelings too, just like any other cat. Of course you have, but a medicine cat has to control those feelings for the good of the clan. The path we follow has its own rewards. I've never felt cheated by the destiny StarClan sent me. Every word she spoke tore into Leafpool like a badger's fangs. Fury surged inside her.
You can't possibly understand, she spat. You've never been in love.
Cinderpelt's blue gaze rested on her, unspoken thoughts flickering like minnows in her eyes. It's easy for you, Leafpool went on bitterly. You never wanted anything else. The medicine cat flexed her claws, and her neck fur began to rise. How do you know what I want? There was the hint of a snarl in her voice. How do you know what hopes I gave up to follow the path StarClan let down for me? Leafpool flinched. She had never seen Cinderpelt this angry. You'll come back to camp with me, now, Cinderpelt growled, and stop this nonsense for good. It's for your own good. It's for your own sake, Leafpool. Meeting Crowfeather can't be right if you have to lie and sneak around in the shadows. I haven't spent all this time training you to be a good medicine cat for you to throw it away like this. Your clan needs you.
No, I won't come.
A gale of guilt and anger swept through Leafpool.
I'll go on seeing Crowfeather whenever I want to, and there's nothing you can do to stop me.
Oh, snap. Cinderpelt's eyes flashed, and she launched herself at Leafpool, claws out. Oh! Leafpool turned tail and ran. As she fled, all she knew was that she must escape from that accusing stare, those lashing claws. The forest whirled past her as if she were caught up in the wind, and when exhaustion finally forced her to stop, she wasn't sure where she was. She was standing on the edge of a narrow valley with gorse and bracken growing on each side. In the distance it grew deeper, and very faintly Leafpool could hear the sound of running water. Suddenly, relief flooded her heart. She had left ThunderClan territory behind and was halfway to the moon pool. She could be completely alone there, without Crowfeather pleading with her to leave, or the fear that her secret would be discovered. The shining spirits of her ancestors would come to her and tell her what to do. She padded on, more slowly now, until she reached the starlit stream that tumbled down from the hollow where the moon pool lay. By the time she reached the barrier of bushes around the top, she was staggering from weariness, but the sight of the glimmering water below gave her strength. As she followed the spiral path down to the water's edge, her paws slipped easily into the marks left by the generations of cats so long ago. Her churning emotions grew calmer. She crouched down by the pool, lapped once from the water, and closed her eyes. Leafpool, Leafpool! The gentle voice spoke in her ear, and soft fur brushed against her pelt. Leafpool opened her eyes to see the beautiful tortoiseshell Spotted Leaf sitting beside her, wreathed in sunlight and starlight. Oh, Spotted Leaf, she purred, I've missed you so much. I thought you had abandoned me. Never think that, dear one. Spotted Leaf mewed. Her sweet scent flowed over Leafpool, and she bent her head to draw her tongue over the younger cat's ears. How could I leave you to struggle with your feelings alone? Leafpool felt her fur claw with guilt. You know about Crowfeather? Spotted Leaf nodded. I love him so much. I can't be a medicine cat anymore. Leafpool blurted out helplessly. Spotted Leaf pressed her muzzle against Leafpool's shoulder. Then she murmured, I know what it is. I know what it is to love, although my path was different from yours. Who knows? If I had lived, maybe I might have suffered what you are suffering now. Please tell me what to do, Leafpool begged. I can't bear this. I don't feel like I'm needed in ThunderClan anymore. Cinderpelt doesn't want me. She has Brightheart to help her. Brightheart needs a purpose just now. Wisdom shone like moonlight in Spotted Leaf's eyes. She has found it in helping Cinderpelt. Be generous to her. But she's always there, Leafpool muttered. She knew she was being unreasonable. I'll try to understand, she promised with a sigh. But Brightheart isn't the only reason I don't think my clan wants me. I've quarreled with Twlight, and we never quarrel. Spotted Leaf gave her a gentle lick between the ears. Your sister loves you. One quarrel will not change that. And Crowfeather? Leafpool mewed, feeling her heart beat faster, as it always did when she thought of the Wind Clan warrior. He wants us to go away together. I want to be with him so much, but should I really leave my clan for him? No cat can make this decision for you, Spotted Leaf replied, letting the tip of her tail brush against Leafpool's shoulder. Deep inside, you know what is right, and you must follow your heart. Leafpool sat up, feeling as if a bright light had shone straight through her mind. Surely her heart was where her feelings for Crowfeather came from. Spotted Leaf did understand. You mean it's all right for me to love Crowfeather? Oh, Spotted Leaf, thank you. The beautiful short tortoiseshell began to fade, dissolving into stars. Her scent remained, hanging in the air with a few last words that died away into silence. Remember, you know what is right. Leafpool blinked. Her nose was almost touching the shining water of the moon pool, and her legs were cramped from lying on the cold stones. But when she sprang up, she felt as if she could run forever. You must follow your heart. Spotted Leaf had told her she could do what her love demanded and leave the clans with Crowfeather. It didn't matter if she gave up being a medicine cat, because Brightheart was helping out. Besides, Cinderpelt was young and healthy. She had many seasons to train another apprentice. That's terrible foreshadow. Oh my god. That's the most foreshadowing I've ever heard in my entire life. It didn't matter that Leafpool felt as if her clan didn't need her anymore. Her destiny lay elsewhere, far beyond this territory, with Crowfeather beside her. Her heart light as a leaf, she bounded up the spiral path, thrust her way through the bushes, and raced down the hill to find Crowfeather. The long journey between Moonpool and the lake seemed to skim by in a few heartbeats, although by the time she reached the stream that divided ThunderClan from WindClan, the sky was growing paler, and one by one the stars were fading. At first she was afraid that she would have to wait for the next gathering before she saw Crowfeather again. After all, she had sent him back to his camp to avoid a quarrel between him and Cinderpelt. Maybe he had been so angry that he wondered he wouldn't even want to see her again. Then she spotted him sitting in the shelter of a gorse bush a few tail lengths inside WindClan territory. He looked so lonely, staring down at the lake with his tail curled over his paws. Leafpool's heart flipped over. They were both loners in their own clans, but now they could be together forever. Crowfeather! He spun around. Leafpool splashed through the stream towards him, and he met her on the far bank, his eyes shining, and as he pressed his muzzle into her shoulder and wound his tail with hers. I've thought about what you said, she mewed, about leaving. You have? I've been so scared, Crowfeather, scared about leaving my clan and my kin. But I went to the Moonpool, and Spotted Leaf came to speak to me. Seeing Crowfeather look puzzled, she added, She was ThunderClan's medicine cat once, but now she walks with StarClan. She often visits me in dreams. Crowfeather still seemed bewildered. Leafpool wasn't sure if he believed her, or if he thought that her encounters with Spotted Leaf were nothing more than dreams. What did she say? She told me to follow my heart. Crowfeather's eyes widened. You're a medicine cat, Leafpool. Isn't that where your heart has led you? Once it was. Leafpool's heart thumped as she realized that Crowfeather thought she was about to reject him. But ThunderClan has a medicine cat. Cinderpelt is young and strong, and she'll serve the clan for seasons yet. And Brightheart will help out from now on. Cinderpelt can train another apprentice when I've gone. Crowfeather drew in a painful breath. When you've gone? Leafpool, does that mean? Yes, I'll come with you. Leafpool could hardly bear to look at the blaze of happiness in Crowfeather's eyes. Did he really love her this much? Her belly twisted with fear. She couldn't let him down now. She had to go through with this. I've been scared too, Crowfeather admitted. I don't want to leave my clan or my friends. I even hoped I might be leader one day. But more than that, I don't want to lose you, Leafpool, and there's no way for us to be together if we stay here. Leafpool pressed her side against his, the warmth of his pelt comforting her as she stared into a future that was suddenly dark and terrifying. Where should we go? Not back towards the forest, Crowfeather decided. We'd end up in the mountains, or places where there are too many two-legs. There are hills beyond WindClan where we can look for a place to live. I'll take care of you, Leafpool. For a moment, his gaze darkened and drifted away from her, filled with memories. I promise I'll take care of you, he repeated more strongly. Are you ready? You mean leaving now? Leafpool gasped. Don't you think we should? But I want to say goodbye. Leafpool almost wailed out loud, but she knew that would be impossible. Saying goodbye would cause anger and pain and confusion, and maybe their clans would prevent them from going at all. You're right. She tried to sound brave and optimistic. I'm ready. Crowfeather touched his nose to the top of her head. Thank you. I promise I'll do everything I can to make sure you won't regret this. They turned their backs on the lake and padded side by side up the hill. Ahead of them, the rising sun filled the sky with streaks of flame as they left their clans and everything they had ever known. That's a really good place to stop. It's like the end of the book, except it isn't because there's more to the book. And I'll be able to finish it next week relatively easily and quick. Yay! And it's 5:30, which is a pretty good time to start getting... I mean, I guess I don't really need to get ready right away, but... Yippee!
All right. We are gonna raid somebody, and I'll try and decide what game to play next. I'm gonna try and stream on Friday, because Friday is my short day, but I do have a long day on Thursday and Saturday, I believe. Hopefully it'll go by fast, because I'm technically working in the toy aisle, and I love working in the toy aisle. And I lose time so easily when I'm working there. Let me check. No, I have a long day on Friday too. Dang it, I have 3 long days in a row. Poopy. Wait, I have barely any days in the future. The heck? The only day I have is Sunday. And then I'm working long on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and Friday. Okay, Saturday is the only other day. That sucks. I'll have to try and see how much energy I have and try to stream on one of my long days and see how it works. I don't think... The thing is, I think I'm trying to say like, oh yeah, I have to stream for 3 hours each time. Or something similar to that. At least 2 hours at the very least, you know, because otherwise it's too short. But I think just streaming in general is okay to do. So hopefully I'll just try and stream. I'll try and stream, and it might not be long streams, but at least it'll be streams. And I miss streaming. And streaming makes me happy. And yeah. Alright, who's streaming right now? Speaking of. Oh my god, somebody sneezed outside. Oh, let's raid. Let's raid. Evie. Oh, I got a new raid message. Hold on, where is it? My raid message. Is this it? I made new raid messages for us. Aren't they cute? They have like these little pops in them. Pop, 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 popcorn. Oh, pop comes in, coming. Pop, pop, pop. And then you can like, you know, like copy paste them, and they should copy paste pretty okay. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm going to the ending screen now. Oh no, it's too big! Hold on. Transform. Fit the screen. Oh, it's Control F. Oh, I can do that really easily. Caught the end of the stream. Hi, Pom-Pom. Thank you for dropping by. Even though it's the end, I appreciate it nonetheless. And because of that, your name will probably be on the chatters list, right? Aw, dang. It didn't work. Okay, guys. I'll see you when I see you, I guess. I'll try to be there soon. I'll try to stream before Sunday. That'll be my goal, even if it's for a short while. Bye, Mom.